Dahe asked tentatively. Luo Cheng looked up at Dahe and said sarcastically, "Look at your lack of ambition. What, 5,000 or 10,000? Didn't Lao Zhang say that he could get a discount of half? Let him get a discount of half." Dahe stuttered, "Luo. Brother Luo, shall we not take a penny?" Luo Cheng looked at him. "What do you think?" Dahe. Dahe. "Brother Luo, are you sure you really don't like Sister Wanner? You really don't want to date her? Otherwise, 30,000, just give it as a favor?" Luo Cheng raised his hand as if to slap him. "I'm going to slap you. Didn't I say it? You're already married and have kids. Am I such a cheap guy? Can't find a wife, or what? And you're still chasing after her?" Dahe dodged cleverly and couldn't help muttering, "If you can find one, go find it. I've been talking for years, and I haven't even seen the shadow of a girl." Luo Cheng cracked his hands. "What are you mumbling about?" Dahe ran away with a strong desire to survive. Nothing to mutter. "I said that, Brother Luo. You will definitely find a partner soon and get out of being single." Luo Cheng looked at Dahe running away and couldn't help but laugh and curse. Giving Xia Huanhuan this favor. Well, 30,000 is a bit big. How many business trips would he have to make to earn it back? However, the words were already said, and he had no reason to take them back. To say that he had no selfish motives for Xia Huanhuan with this gift, that would be a lie. But more of it was actually to prevent Xia Huanhuan from breaking off business with him in the future. During these days, he still couldn't figure out where Xia Huanhuan got so many supplies, but he really made money. For example, he tried to get those Western medicines from Hong Kong, but sometimes he couldn't get them, but Xia Huanhuan just gave them to him in boxes. He made thousands of yuan just from those Western medicines. However, Xia Huanhuan was not very active in making money, and she would give up easily. So, he did a favor to Xia Huanhuan today just to improve their business relationship. The next day, Xia Huanhuan came again and was stunned when she heard that the owner of the courtyard, Lao Zhang, was willing to sell it at half the price, only 30,000 yuan. She wanted to ask the owner if he was kicked in the head by a donkey in his dream last night and became stupid. Of course not. Lao Zhang sold it at half the price, and he looked happy and worried, for fear that Xia Huanhuan would change his mind and not buy it. No matter how stupid Xia Huanhuan was, she guessed that the price was reduced, but the favor was probably owed. However, for the sake of the courtyard house, she accepted it for the time being. She handed over the 30,000 yuan she had prepared, a total of 3,000 big unity notes and 30 thick stacks of money to Lao Zhang, and got the key and title deed of the courtyard house from Lao Zhang. She also wrote a document for the transfer of the house. They both signed and pressed their fingerprints, and the transaction was completed. Xia Huanhuan directly gave Dahe 300 yuan as the middleman fee. Dahe couldn't help but sigh that Xia Huanhuan was really generous. He was just grinding his lips. Although he had inquired for several months, it was just by the way. The 300 yuan was still easy to earn. After coming out of the courtyard house, Xia Huanhuan asked, "Dahe, Luo Cheng is in Beijing, right? I want to see him." Dahe was a little embarrassed, but he couldn't resist Xia Huanhuan, so he took her there. Luo Cheng's grandfather's residence was also a courtyard house, which was not far from Xia Huanhuan's. Xia Huanhuan didn't hesitate and took out the remaining 10,000 yuan from her and put it on the table. The 10 yuan unity bill had a total of 10 stacks. Luo Cheng looked up at her, smiled, and evaded the question, "What does this mean?" Xia Huanhuan smiled and said, "It's the money for buying the courtyard house. I don't like to owe favors to others. I'll owe you the remaining 20,000 first and pay you back later." Xia Huanhuan interrupted him and smiled. "Luo Cheng, don't lie in front of me, right? That old Zhang might be able to give me a discount, but he took the initiative to reduce the price by half, and he was afraid that I wouldn't buy it. If I still can't see anything, wouldn't I be a fool?" Luo Cheng smiled a little guilty and simply admitted generously, "Alas, that's true. However, I'm not doing this for you, but purely for the future business between us. If you really want to pay back the money, let's do this. I'll keep the 10,000 and consider it as old Zhang giving you a discount of 20,000. For the rest, you can sell me more supplies in the future. That's all." What do you think? After hearing this, Xia Huanhuan still felt that she had not repaid the favor, but it was reasonable, so she agreed. After the matter was resolved, Xia Huanhuan went home. Luo Cheng sent her to the door and asked Dahe to accompany her to the house he rented. When they were leaving the alley, they were seen by someone.
Hey.
Howsy, come and take a look. Does the woman who passed by in front look like your sister-in-law? Sister-in-law? What sister-in-law?
Hey.
Why can't you use your brain? It's our captain's wife. Are you crazy? Did you see it wrong? Isn't Captain Li's wife a rural person? How could she appear here? Besides, you only saw her once. How can you remember it so clearly? TSK. Look for yourself. I think she looks alike. The man called Howsy listened and took a casual look. It didn't matter if he took a look, but he became serious. She
really looks alike. But
why did she walk with that guy called Dahe? Don't talk nonsense. There are so many people who look alike in the world. Maybe we have made a mistake. Let's go back and send a telegram to the commander and make a decision after talking about it. The two men were soldiers under Li Zhan. Because they were on rotation this time, they did not go on a mission together. Li Zhan asked them to help investigate the incident of Li Chang coming to the city to sell jade 2 days ago. The two men were both scouts and were good at disguise. After hanging around in the black market for 2 days, they found out that it was Dahe's men who bought the jade. This time they followed Dahe, so they met Xia Huanhuan. In addition to them, another person saw it.
Fu Nanzeng frowned slightly.
It was true that they looked a bit like each other just now. But it doesn't make sense. How could Xia Huanhuan know Luo Cheng?
Or
was it Luo Cheng's girlfriend, who just happened to look a bit like Xia Huanhuan? Fu Nanjing decided to ask directly. After knocking on the door, Luo Cheng opened the door and let him in when he heard it was him. Fu Nanjing asked straight to the point. The girl who just went out, is she your girlfriend? It turned out that Luo Cheng was from the same compound as the Fu family. He was about the same age as Fu Nanjing, so they had a close relationship. After Luo Cheng's grandfather passed away, Luo Cheng followed his parents to Shanghai for work transfer. However, when Luo Cheng came back to Beijing later, his relationship with Fu Nanjing was not unfamiliar, and they were still good friends. Luo Cheng sighed and said, "Look at my face." Fu Nanjing was expressionless for a moment and said, "You are not as handsome as me. What should I look at?" Luo Cheng. Luo Cheng said unhappily, "Am I asking you to look at me as if I have hit on the peach blossom luck? I thought, as soon as I confessed, I was rejected. She's married. No hope."
Fu Nanzeng frowned again.
Married? It can't really be. What's her name? Luo Cheng stared at her vigilantly. Why are you asking this? You don't fall in love with her too, do you?
What?
Planning to give up you. Fu Nanjing looked up and glared at him. Luo Cheng swallowed the name, sighed and said, "Ah, you two are really. Forget it. Can I stop talking?" Fu Nanjing said, "Don't change the subject. What's the name of that girl just now?" Luo Cheng said, "Her name is Dongwan. I just met her by chance before, nothing serious."
Don Juan?
Even the names are similar. Fu Nanjing was a little entangled. Could it be that the person was really Xia Huanhuan?
But
isn't she in the countryside? Why did she come to Beijing? Because he had a letter of introduction, it was possible to come to Beijing to visit relatives. But under normal circumstances, it is easy to get a letter of introduction to go to one's own county, but it is not so easy to get one to cross provinces or come to the city, especially Beijing, without a legitimate reason. But it really looks like it. If it is true, did Luo Cheng really not lie just now? Does he really have nothing to do with Xia Huanhuan? If Luo Cheng really has something to do with Xia Huanhuan, should he stand on Li Zhan's side or on Xia Huanhuan's side? Although the family has also checked Xia Huanhuan's background, they have not found evidence to prove that Xia Huanhuan is his lost sister, but just because she looked so much like his mother, he felt that it was almost certain, and he already regarded Xia Huanhuan as his sister. But Li Zhan was also close to his family, and he had treated her like a brother over the years. It was really a headache for him to make a choice all of a sudden.
And
whether to tell Li Zhan about this was also a question. Xia Huanhuan didn't know that she had been seen, and she still returned to the village through space. As a result, she saw that the village was organizing people to go into the mountains. Secretary Zhao saw her from a distance and said, "Li Zhan's wife, you must not be anxious." Xia Huanhuan's heart sank inexplicably after hearing this, and she looked at Secretary Zhao with wide eyes. Secretary Zhao said softly, "Alas, your triplets and Xiaowen are missing. The village and I have gathered all the strong laborers to search the mountains. Don't worry, we will definitely find them." Alas. Li Zhan's wife, are you okay? Xiaoyan, come here quickly. Secretary Zhao's daughter-in-law Wu Xiaoyan hurried forward and supported Xia Huanhuan, who was almost fainted. Oh my god. Huanhuan, don't scare me. Wake up quickly. When Xia Huanhuan heard Secretary Zhao say it's missing, she was numb. The panic of losing the most precious thing in an instant. Her hands and feet were weak, her brain froze, and her face was filled with grief. Wu Xiaoyan's voice came from afar, and Xia Huanhuan's consciousness was finally focused. Her 3 children and Xiaowen were missing.
No. How could they be missing?
Human traffickers? Or were they killed by wild beasts in the mountains?
No.
She must not collapse. Otherwise, how can she find her children? Secretary Zhao said anxiously. Xiaoyan, you and Qinqi, send Li Zhan's wife home. You stay with her first, and don't let her do anything stupid. Also, the same goes for her mother Lin Yuru. Let Li Jie's wife keep a close eye on her and don't let anything happen again. Wu Xiaoyan and Qinqi came up and whispered, Huanhuan? Sister-in-law Waner, you must hold on. The whole village has been looking for her. We will definitely find her. As they spoke, they tried to take Xia Huanhuan home. Xia Huanhuan had recovered by now. She shook her head and whispered, I'm fine. Don't hold me, I want to go home quickly. Wu Xiaoyan and Qinqi looked at each other in bewilderment.
Is she
really okay? But they still let go of her hands obediently, and Xia Huanhuan actually ran home at full speed. The two had to hurry up to catch up. Xia Huanhuan looked really wrong. If it were someone else, they would have burst into tears when they heard that the child was lost. Apart from the fact that Xia Huanhuan fainted due to anger just now, she has not cried yet. However, they naturally would not think that Xia Huanhuan was heartless and indifferent. When encountering such a big change, people's brains are still numb, unable to react, disbelief, escaping from reality, etc. are all normal reactions. On the contrary, this reaction may be much more dangerous than crying loudly. There are also many people who do not cry or make a fuss, but cannot get over a hurdle and fall to the ground and never wake up again. Lin Yuru has cried so hard that she has passed out. If Zhou Qiuhe hadn't stopped her, she would have jumped into the well. Xiaowu and Beibei also raised their heads and cried loudly. Zhou Qiuhe was still persuading. Auntie Lin, no one wants to encounter this. There are so many children in our village. Aren't the older ones taking the younger ones out to play? Who would have thought that they would be lost? Maybe they were playful and followed their brother into the mountains to play and got lost? The whole village is looking for them. They will definitely be found. You said that if you couldn't think straight and really jumped into the well, wouldn't Huanhuan be even more sad when she came back? Lin Yuru was so anxious that her hair turned a lot white during the whole afternoon. She cried so hard that she couldn't even breathe. She said self-reproachfully, Waner
told me
to keep a close eye on the children these days, and why didn't I listen? Yen Yen.
Yay. Yao Yao. Xiaowen.
How can I report to my daughters?
Ugh.
When Xia Huanhuan came in, Lin Yuru burst into tears, feeling even more upset and guilty. Xia Huanhuan's mind was still blank. She walked over, pulled Lin Yuru, and said, Mom, don't cry first. Tell me what happened at that time first. Lin Yuru burst into tears and couldn't say a complete sentence after talking for a long time. Zhou Qiuhe had to tell what she heard. Aunt Lin was cooking in the house at that time. I heard from my Yingying and Huanhuan that Xiaowen, Xiaowu, and Beibei took the triplets out to play. They have been playing in the east end of the village recently, and the adults in the village don't go there very often. These past 2 days, It seems that there is an unfamiliar woman who always hangs in front of them and takes out rice cakes or fruit candies to share with them. However, Xiaowen and the triplets shook their heads and refused. Today, when there were no people in the late afternoon, Xiaowen and the triplets were going to take the triplets home, but suddenly several adults rushed over and took the triplets away, without saying a word. Xiaowen, Xiao, they have been playing in the east end of the village recently, and the adults in the village. There was also an adult who threatened the children and told them not to shout, otherwise he would take them away too. The children were so scared that they didn't dare to say a word. After a long while, the men covered the triplets' mouths and went into the mountains, and then the man left. Xiaowen asked Xiaowu and Beibei to come back to report the news, and he chased towards the mountain. After the other children returned home, the village knew about it. Secretary Zhao immediately organized the strong laborers in the village to search in the mountains. After Zhou Qiuhe finished speaking, she began to comfort. Huanyu, don't worry. Secretary Zhao has sent someone to the county to send a telegram to Li Zhan, and the county has also reported it. If Li Zhan receives the telegram, he should be able to come back soon. Yes, Huan. Our whole village is looking for them, and those rascals will definitely not escape. Wu Xiaoyan and Qin Qi also advised. But even though they advised, they had no idea at all. Those people. I'm afraid they're most likely human traffickers. If that's the case, they might have already explored the way in the mountains, and no one knows where they have gone. Although the villagers of Qingshui village usually go into the mountains, there are wolves and blind bears in the deep mountains, and the roads in the mountains are even more complicated. Compared with the human traffickers who have already explored the way, whether they can find the children back is really another matter. And Xiaowen, such a young child, went into the mountains. It was almost dark. Wild wolves and wild boars were roaming. A child of 6 or 7 years old was probably in danger. Xia Huanhuan forced herself to cheer herself up, not to cry, not to collapse. Now is not the time to regret and blame herself and want to die. Otherwise, her children might really not be found. Those people have also seen other children? Or did they just go and hug Yan Yan, Ye and Yao Yao?
Xia Huanhuan asked.
Zhou Qiuhe recalled what Ying said and then said, it seems that they went straight to Yan Yan and the others. However, this matter is really strange. A few days ago, that woman was hanging around nearby, giving candy to children, and other children in the village took it to eat. Even if they want to kidnap, children who have eaten candy will definitely be easier to deceive. Several of your little ones shook their heads and said no.
But
it may also be because the triplets are relatively small and easier to take away. Did they leave anything behind? Xia Huanhuan asked again. Her guess in her heart was that it was either human traffickers or kidnapping in the future. After all, they lived a good life, and it was possible that someone was jealous and wanted to extort some money. If there was a note asking for a ransom, it would at least prove that the children were temporarily safe. If it was human traffickers, the safety of the children should be guaranteed for the time being. After all, they are seeking money.
But
Xia Huanhuan always felt that such a tough method did not seem like human traffickers. Zhou Qiuhe thought about it, shook her head and said, it seems not. At this time, Xiao Wu and Bei Bei on the side cried and said, yes.
Mom, yes.
That bad guy gave us a piece of paper, but the paper was later taken away by Li Sheng to make an airplane. After hearing these words, Xia Huanhuan stood up immediately and walked straight to the kitchen. Zhou Qiuhe was a little confused when she saw this. A piece of paper? What's written on it? Oh my God. It can't be that they are human traffickers. They are the ones in the play. They are asking for a ransom, right? In this era, every household has a hard time, especially in the countryside, where people can't even get enough food. Therefore, the villagers, including Zhou Qiuhe, have a preconceived idea that it must be human traffickers, and they never thought of kidnappers. After all, if you want to kidnap, it is definitely more cost-effective to kidnap children in the city. You can get a ransom with a salary of dozens of yuan a month. People in the countryside don't have any money at all. However, Li Zhan is a soldier outside and has an allowance every month, so it is very likely that he will be targeted. At this time, Xia Huanhuan had already come out with a kitchen knife. Zhou Qiuhua, Wu Xiaoyun, and Qin Shi, as well as Lin Yuru, who was crying breathlessly, were all scared.
Huan, you are.
Don't be impulsive.
Huania.
It's all Mom's fault, you. You must not do anything stupid. Is Xia Huanhuan unable to bear the stimulation and going crazy? Or is she going to commit suicide? Xia Huanhuan's beautiful eyes widened, and she said in a cold voice, "Get out of the way. I'm not crazy, but if you try to stop me, I might really go crazy." Several people didn't dare to stop her. Wu Xiaoyan quickly asked Qin Shi to run and call for help. She and Zhou Qiuhua didn't dare to stop Xia Huanhuan, so they could only quickly follow her to see what she was going to do with the kitchen knife. Xia Huanhuan went straight into Li Chang's house. The triplets were abducted, and the other strong laborers in the village went into the mountains to search for people. But Li Chang didn't go. He secretly sold the jade, and after it was made, the truth was revealed, and he was forced by Li Jie to write an IOU. Therefore, he hated Li Jie and Li Zhan in his heart. Hearing that the triplets were taken away, he was so happy in his heart that he didn't have time to help find them. Li Sheng and Li Jiaojiao were playing with the paper airplane in the yard. When Wang Guixiang saw Xia Huanhuan entering her yard, she wanted to scold her like a shrew and scold Xia Huanhuan out. As a result, before she opened her mouth, she saw the kitchen knife in Xia Huanhuan's hand and was scared. Oh my God! With a howl, he hid behind Li Chang. Li Chang was also afraid. While retreating, he said in a trembling voice, "Xia Huanhuan.
You.
What are you going to do? Didn't I just go into the mountains to help find your son? Can I go now? Put down the kitchen knife first." Li Sheng and Li Jiaojiao didn't dare to play anymore. Looking at the ferocious Xia Huanhuan, they were scared to cry. Xia Huanhuan stared at Li Chang and said in a hoarse voice, "Give me your son's paper airplane." Li Chang and Wang Guixiang were stunned for a moment. You.
What do you want? Paper.
Paper airplane? Xia Huanhuan said coldly. "Stop talking nonsense.
Give it to me or not. Give it to me or not."
Li Chang howled like a ghost and quickly took the paper plane from Li Sheng and handed it to Xia Huanhuan tremblingly. Li Sheng was still holding on and didn't want to give it, but Li Chang slapped him twice. He immediately became obedient and burst into tears with his head tilted back. Xia Huanhuan took the paper plane and quickly opened it. As expected, there was a line of crooked words written on it. 200 yuan for a child. Take 600 yuan and ask Lu Lan to send the child to the mountains, and we will return the child to you. Otherwise, in just one line of words, there were several typos. There was no doubt that it was a letter demanding a ransom. However, why did they so clearly ask Lu Lan to deliver the ransom? Xia Huanhuan turned around abruptly and looked at the house opposite where Lu Lan lived. It was not a big deal, but suddenly there was a crisp sound of a door closing. It was obvious that Lu Lan was peeking just now and found that Xia Huanhuan was looking over here, so she closed the door in a panic. Xia Huanhuan's heart moved, and she turned and walked towards Lu Lan's house. She felt that something was wrong with Lu Lan a few days ago, and today, something happened to the children. It was too coincidental. What's more, the ransom specifically asked her to deliver it. Xia Huanhuan kicked the door open with one foot. Lu Lan saw Xia Huanhuan holding a knife, looking like a killing god from Hades, and was really scared.
You. Xia Huanhuan, you.
What do you want to do?
I don't know anything.
With just one sentence, Xia Huanhuan was sure that Lu Lan must be involved. Wu Xiaoyan and Zhou Qiuhua chased after her, and were shocked to see Xia Huanhuan enter Lu Lan's room. They were about to chase her in to dissuade her. But before they came in, Xia Huanhuan locked the door from the inside. At the same time, Qin Shi also rushed over with several other women in the village who could be called and surrounded the door. Lu Lan was really scared this time. Ever since she was deliberately pushed down by Xia Huanhuan in the yard, she began to be afraid of Xia Huanhuan and dared not confront her head-on. Now, Xia Huanhuan locked the door from the inside with a kitchen knife in her hand, which was even more terrifying. Woo. You. Duant, come over.
I I really don't know anything. If you dare to kill me, you will also have to go to labor camp.
Lu Lan as screams were heard outside, and people anxiously knocked on the door and advised, Huan Huan, calm down. Your 3 children were taken away. We know you are sad, but this matter has nothing to do with your mother-in-law. And Lu Lan, don't do anything stupid. Xia Huan was unmoved, still staring, walked straight to Lu Lan, and put the kitchen knife to her neck. Lu Lan, if anything happens to my children, I will definitely not live alone anymore. Do you think I will be afraid of labor reform or jail? With the knife on her neck, Lu Lan fell to the ground, her hands and feet weak, unable to move. She sobbed and said,
Woo, don't kill me. I don't want to die.
Xia Huan then spoke again faintly. If you don't want to die, then confess obediently.
Tell me.
Did you collude with someone to take my children away and then ask for money? Lu Lan still insisted. I
really don't know.
The kitchen knife in Xia Huan's hand sharply cut the skin on the side of Lu Lan's neck. The pain scared Lu Lan so much that she urinated incontinently.
I'll
tell you. Lu Lan cried. It's my ex-lover. He found me years ago and wanted to threaten me and ask me for money. Where did I have the money? He said he would beat me, and I really had no choice but to remember that you had the allowance sent back by Li Zhan, which must be a lot of money. I told him, but I really didn't know that he would take your child away.
Whoa. Xia Huan sneered. You didn't know?
If you didn't know, the letter they left asked you to send the money? They didn't even say where to meet and when to send it. How did you know where to send it? Lu Lan was suddenly at a loss for words.
Speak, or die.
Your choice, Xia Huan said dimly. The kitchen knife in her hand was aimed at Lu Lan's neck. I'll tell you. I know their hideout in the mountains. We agreed to wait for 3 days and then take the money to them at the latest 3 days later. Lu Lan didn't say anything, and then she didn't release the children, but killed them directly. Only if something happened to the children, Li Zhan would blame Xia Huan for not taking good care of the children, causing the children to get into trouble. Only then would it be possible to divorce Xia Huan. At that time, she would go and have a good talk with Li Zhan, swearing and begging for forgiveness, and in the future, she would rely on Li Zhan to support her in her old age. Lu Lan certainly didn't dare to say these plans. She cried, I can lead the way for you and find the little guys back. Please don't kill me. Woo. At this time, the door was also knocked open by the people outside. Secretary Zhao and the village women's director came over. However, after they entered the room, they did not stop Xia Huan. They also heard what Lu Lan said just now. Although Xia Huan used a kitchen knife to scare her troops, it seems that Lu Lan is not innocent at all. The women who came in looked at Lu Lan coldly, and they all spitted poo to express their disgust. Xia Huan was still too kind. If their child was kidnapped by Lu Lan, the kitchen knife would have been swung down impulsively, and how could she cry for no reason? Seeing the door being knocked open and everyone else coming in, Xia Huan turned around, looked at Secretary Zhao with cold eyes, and said, Secretary Zhao, I know it's wrong for me to do this. After my little guys are found, I will accept whatever the village or county wants to do with me. Secretary Zhao was also indignant about Lu Lan's confession just now. The women's director on the side said, Huan, don't worry. No one saw anything today. It was Lu Lan who turned herself in because she felt guilty. Everyone reacted after hearing this and said in unison, Yes, we can all testify. Lu Lan is such a bad person. Secretary Zhao didn't say anything else. He asked the 2 women to pull Lu Lan up and then immediately let her lead the way to find the hiding place of those people in the mountains. However, they were also afraid that if they moved too much, the criminals would find out that something was wrong and harm the little guys. Therefore, they still planned to let a woman of similar stature to Lu Lan wear Lu Lan's clothes, pretend to be Lu Lan, take the money, and go over to trade. The others would quietly form an encirclement based on the place provided by Lu Lan and gradually narrow the encirclement. Xia Huan couldn't wait for all this. After listening to the location of the mountain described by Lu Lan, she sneaked into the mountain directly. The location Lu Lan mentioned was the location is in the very hinterland of this forest, and it is relatively hidden. It would take too much time to wait for the search team to arrive there. After entering the mountain, she immediately entered the space and teleported to the bushes near the location Lu Lan mentioned. Fortunately, she had probably walked all over this mountain in the past 2 years, and she knew the place Lu Lan mentioned, so she could teleport here in an instant. Unfortunately, she still came up empty-handed. There were bloodstains, torn clothes, and fallen shoes on the ground, but no one was seen. Xia Huan's heart skipped a beat. This clearly looked like she had been attacked. No wonder she heard a sound similar to that of a civil warehouse just now. Maybe it was the sound of the gang opening the wood warehouse to fight the beast that was about to attack them. Could it be that her children had been killed? Since these criminals took the children away for money, they definitely had no conscience. If they were really attacked by a beast, then, in order to survive, their first reaction would definitely be to throw the children who had no ability to fight back to the beast, so as to buy time to escape.
No.
No way. Her children must still be alive. Otherwise, she, as a mother, would definitely feel it.
Impossible.
Xia Huan got up and began to chase forward along the traces left by some people who fled in a panic.
Then,
I saw 2 people who had become unrecognizable and died miserably. Xia Huan almost vomited again. She stepped back and traced other traces again. She did not find any dead people, but found a small shoe. Xia Huan hugged the small shoe and finally couldn't help crying. However, she didn't dare to delay any more time, nor did she dare to use space again, for fear of missing any corner. She didn't dare to use a flashlight or something like that for lighting, for fear that the gangsters or beasts would see Zhao Ming and find her. Fortunately, after walking in the dark for a long time, she could see the surrounding scenes in front of her. Even so, her clothes were scratched in many places, she fell several times, and her body was also knocked or scratched in many places. But she had no time to care. Now, even if the sky fell, it was not as important as her finding her children. Suddenly, a child's cry was heard in the silent forest. Xia Huan's heart tightened, and then she burst into tears of joy. She recognized that it was Yi Ye's cry. At least it proved that Yi. No, the children were still alive. However, the cry only sounded for a moment, and then it stopped abruptly. Then, suddenly, there was a sound of a wooden box. I don't know if it was because of the sound of the wooden box that the crying sounded again. This time, Xia Huan heard that it was the cry of all 3 cubs. Xia Huan was happy, anxious, and afraid. She was also worried about whether Xiaowen was okay. She immediately entered the space and tried to teleport to the place where the sound came from. After coming out of the space, Xia Huan heard the sound of a wooden box again, followed by a painful howl of a wolf, as if it was injured. The sound was very close to her. It is difficult to judge the direction by sound alone. Xia Huan often goes into the mountains and listens to the noises more often, so she can judge the general direction correctly. However, she only teleported to a place closer through space. Now she still has to follow the sound to find the way. There are few people in the deep mountains in this area, so the road is difficult to walk. Suddenly, there was a sound from the bushes next to her. Xia Huan stopped and held a dagger tightly in her hand. However, after a while, a half-grown wolf came out of the bushes. After seeing her, he came forward intimately and circled around her feet. Xia Huan was stunned for a moment before she recognized that this was one of the 2 wolf cubs she helped save in winter. She didn't expect that they had grown so big in just 2 or 3 months. The wolf circled around her twice, then let out a low growl and ran in one direction. Xia Huan followed immediately. After walking for a while, they arrived at a hidden place in the bushes. Several larger snow wolves were hiding in the bushes vigilantly. The snow wolves seemed to recognize her. One of them looked at her and turned to walk inside. Xia Huan walked around the big rock and saw Yan, Ye, and Yao snuggling beside their brother Xiaowen in the night, sobbing in fear, sleepiness, and grievance. No wonder they were afraid. If it were daytime, the cubs would probably think that the wolves were big dogs, and they would not be afraid because they looked furry. But now it was late at night, and the eyes of the snow wolves were like small light bulbs. Even if adults met them on the night road, they would be afraid, let alone a few children. However, seeing that they were safe and sound, Xia Huanhuan's legs softened in an instant, and she fell to the ground, tears falling down. This time, it seemed that the snow wolves saved her children. Fortunately, she had helped them before, and now they will repay her kindness with a spring. Xia Huanhuan almost trembled as she rushed over and hugged the triplets and Xiaowen in her arms. However, she still remembered that there should be surviving criminals nearby, so she lowered her voice and choked. Xiaowen yan yan ye yao yao, I'm sorry, mommy is late. The triplets were tired of crying, and they rubbed their eyes with their fists and were about to fall asleep. At this moment, they smelled the smell of their mother and woke up again and cried wow. She cried out again and again, Mom. I want Mom. Xiaowen's tears also fell, but he still quickly covered Yanyan's mouth, hurriedly put his fingers in front of his mouth, and whispered, Be good, don't shout. Otherwise, the bad guys will come to catch us again. After hearing this, the triplets remembered that their brother had just told them not to quarrel, otherwise those bad uncles would come to hug them and beat them again. They were so scared that they dared not cry. Their little hands tightly grasped Xia Huanhuan's clothes and trembled. Xia Huanhuan was almost heartbroken. She protected the 4 children in her arms and whispered, Be good. With Mom here, I will never let those bad guys take you away again. As she said, she checked the bodies of the 4 little kids. The triplets didn't suffer any serious injuries, but their faces and hands were covered with mud. Xiaowen's clothes were torn because he had been chasing into the mountains, and there were also traces of scratches on his hands and feet by branches. Xia Huanhuan couldn't help but feel distressed and grateful. Fortunately, Xiaowen chased in. Otherwise, even if the 1-year-old cubs were rescued by the snow wolf pack, they would have cried and screamed, exposing their location and being shot by the gangsters with wooden warehouses. Xia Huanhuan took out Yunnan Baiyao from her pocket and applied the medicine to his more serious wounds, saying, Let's do this for tonight. When we get down the mountain tomorrow, Mom will bandage you. Xiaowen nodded obediently. At this time, I don't know if the triplets' crying was heard, but a low voice was heard from another place in the forest. Boss, listening to the noises of those kids, they should have come from over there. What should we do? Another person said, Bah, they are so lucky. We thought that if we threw them into the wolf pack, we could delay the wolves and we could escape, but we didn't expect that the wolves didn't eat them. This is strange. 2 of our people died because they couldn't run away in time. The wolves didn't eat those 3 1-year-old kids and the little boy who followed us in without knowing the consequences. Boss, what should we do now? Let us run away. Bah, run away. 5 or 6 brothers came to do this, and 2 of them are dead before we even saw the money. If I don't avenge this, I won't be called Chui Lao San. Besides, do you think you can run away? This wolf pack is cunning, and it seems that there are more than 10 of them. Do you believe that we will be torn to pieces by them as soon as we go out? Then, what should we do? One person said with a sad face. You useless idiot. Why are you crying? We have plenty of ammunition. Why should we be afraid of wolves? Come 1, beat 1. Come 2, beat a pair. Let's wait until tomorrow morning. Then we can think of how to escape. That witch Lu Lan dared to cheat me. I will beat her to death. And those little guys, if they fall into my hands tomorrow, I will personally smash them to death to avenge our brothers. Boss, we should ask for the ransom first and then kill them. Otherwise our brothers will have died in vain? Nonsense. I don't know. Do you need me to teach me? As these conversations were going on, a wolf's painful howl was suddenly heard, and the other wolves heard it and howled to the sky one after another, as if they were grieving for the injured wolf. The gangsters' conversation could be heard faintly again. Old 5, go and drag the injured wolf in. If we can't get away, we can still eat wolf meat to fill our stomachs. The gangster called Old 5 didn't dare to do that. Boss, didn't you just say that you would be torn to pieces by wolves if you go out? I
I'm not hungry yet. Let us wait until tomorrow morning. The wolf is injured. It will probably bleed to death tomorrow morning. It won't be too late to drag it back. The boss was almost mad. Waste. But he also knew that the wolves were in the dark and they were in the light. 2 people had already died, and now there were only 4 people left. If one more person went out, it would be even more disadvantageous to them. Therefore, he didn't say anything else. Xia Huanhuan was planning to save the injured wolf in her heart. Hearing the howling of these wolves, she knew that the wolf was probably seriously injured. Snow wolves usually try to avoid people and live in the mountains. They will not confront humans head-on unless it is necessary. After the wolf cubs were captured last time, they went to the village to rescue the cubs and then retreated deeper into the mountains. So, if it weren't for saving her children, they would definitely avoid this group of criminals and hide far away. And now they not only attacked the criminals, but also protected several cubs, and now a wolf was injured. She couldn't sit idly by and do nothing for emotional and logical reasons. Because their mother was around, and they were frightened and hungry all night, the 3 cubs snuggled up to Xia Huanhuan and fell asleep. Xiaowen also dozed off with his head down. Xia Huanhuan gently put the triplets on the ground, and then got up on tiptoe. A female wolf seemed to have a spirit, quietly walking over, lying down where Xia Huanhuan had just been, replacing Xia Huanhuan's position. The triplets were uneasy for a moment because of their mother's departure, but they soon sensed the soft fur of the female wolf and calmed down again. Xia Huanhuan walked lightly around the big rock, then entered the space, and then teleported directly to the side of the injured wolf. This place should be within the range of the gangsters, so she didn't dare to make any sound. She bent down as quickly as possible, picked up the wolf, and then went back to the space. This time, she didn't come out immediately, but directly in the space, using spiritual spring water to clean the wolf's wound. The wolf was shot in the hind leg, the bullet was still inside, and the blood was flowing. Xia Huanhuan gasped. She quickly took out the anesthetic and injected it around the wolf's wound, then took out the scalpel and cut out the bullet. Fortunately, the anesthetic was given, otherwise the wolf would definitely move around in pain, and even think that she was hurting it and attacked herself. After getting the bullet out, Xia Huanhuan quickly used spiritual spring water to clean the wound. The bleeding that had been unable to stop soon stopped. Xia Huanhuan sprinkled trauma medicine on it and bandaged the wound with a bandage. After the wound was properly treated, she took the wolf out of the space. The other wolves immediately surrounded them, as if to express their concern. Xia Huanhuan returned to the cubs and thought about what to do next. In the past, she had tried to bring Grandma Yao, who was about to die, into the space, and she didn't know if the triplets and Xiaowen could do it. If it was possible, she didn't care about anything else and just wanted to take them to Aquan's place immediately. She saw that the 4 cubs were sleeping very soundly, so she took the triplets into her arms, grabbed Xiaowen's wrist with her hand, and then touched the birthmark on her wrist, silently praying to enter the space. When she opened her eyes again, the triplets were lying in her arms. It was a success, but Xiaowen was not brought in. Xia Huanhuan was a little speechless. What exactly does this space mean? When bringing people in, do we have to classify them into different levels, whether they are biological or not? She tried several more times, but she just couldn't bring Xiaowen into the space, so she had to give up. Xiaowen was so young, but he ran to the mountains alone to chase the criminals and try to save his brothers. Xia Huanhuan naturally couldn't abandon him, so she took the triplets home through the space. Therefore, she stayed patiently in the mountains. Fortunately, Secretary Zhao and the others already knew the criminals' hideout, and this place was not too far away. They would definitely be able to search here tomorrow. She just had to protect the cubs and the wolf pack and not be hit and injured by those criminals again. After thinking about it, Xia Huanhuan entered the space again and took out a wooden gun to carry with her. Before crossing, she basically didn't stockpile weapons in the space. The main reason was that she felt that the overall environment was still safe in this era. It would be useless to stockpile too many weapons. On the contrary, if they were used indiscriminately, they would be discovered, which would bring disaster.
However, she still stockpiled 2 Brownings and some bullets in case of emergency. Browning is an antique from the 1920s and 1930s, and there is no problem with its performance. If it is used in this era, there is no need to worry about being discovered that something that has not yet appeared in this era is used. As long as no one sees it, it will not arouse suspicion. She doesn't really hope to use it. But if it really comes to a last resort, she can't care too much to protect the cubs. In the second half of the night, Xia Huanhuan also felt a little sleepy. There were snow wolves standing guard vigilantly all around, so there was no need to worry about the criminals taking risks and attacking the side, so Xia Huanhuan fell into a deep sleep. I don't know how long I slept, but suddenly there was a sound of a wooden box, which woke her up. The triplets were frightened by the sound of the wooden box in their sleep, and they didn't care anymore. With a wow, they cried one after another.
AA.
Oh wow! Such a beautiful woman appeared overnight. We are so lucky today. It seems that not only can we catch a bunch of wolves and sell their meat and skins, but we can also get a beautiful woman to play with. Haha. Little girl, come here obediently. We will protect you and won't let the wolves eat you. How about it? The coward named Lao Wu came over last night and whispered, Boss. Boss, this woman. Couldn't be a fox or a wolf. Otherwise, why don't these wolves eat her? Her? The other 2 gangsters couldn't help but feel a little numb after hearing this. After all, it was the first time they saw such a beautiful woman. The storyteller Bu Lao said that many beautiful women are transformed monsters. This is the wilderness again.
Boss.
Boss, I think what Lao Wu said makes sense. Let's take advantage of the wolves being scared and run away. Otherwise, yeah, just now those cubs asked this woman to call them mom. We threw them into the wolf pack last night, but the wolves didn't eat them. It must be because their mom is not human, but a wolf. That's why those wolves don't eat their own kind.
Boss.
Run away. We have plenty of ammunition. Why are we afraid of a few wolves, a woman, and a few cubs? You useless coward. I'll show you whether she is a goblin or not. The gangster leader said, and suddenly raised his gun, aiming at a wolf blocking Xia Huanhuan, and was about to pull the trigger. With a sound, the wooden gun rang. However, it was not the wolf that fell, but the gangster leader who suddenly screamed "Aw!" and fell to the ground in pain. The other 3 gangsters shuddered subconsciously and looked at their boss woodenly. A bullet hit the gang leader's arm, and the earthenware silo slipped out of his hand, and blood flowed like a column. At the same time, several wolves pounced on them, knocked 2 of the gangsters to the ground, opened their bloody mouths, and bit their shoulders. Another wolf pounced directly on the boss and bit his throat directly. The little wolf cub that was just hit by this gangster and was dying was the child of this mother wolf. It naturally wanted to avenge its child. The last gangster was lucky enough not to be pounced by the wolf. He was so scared that he was about to run away. Suddenly, there was another sound of earthenware silo, and the gangster was also shot in the leg and fell to the ground. Xia Huanhuan's heart trembled, and she quickly put Browning back into the space secretly. The shot that just hit the gang leader was fired by her. But the second shot was not her. In other words, someone else is here. Maybe the village searchers brought the militia in. In any case, the fact that she has earthenware silo on her must not be exposed. Xiaowen and the triplets were still children. Seeing what was happening in front of them, they were already crying loudly out of fear. Xia Huanhuan quickly covered their eyes to prevent them from seeing such a bloody scene. The wolves heard the second gunshot, and perhaps they also keenly sensed the presence of other humans. Therefore, they gave up attacking the gangsters and quickly went deep into the forest and disappeared. The mother wolf of the wolf cub that was shot circled the cub twice, as if she sensed that her child's eyes were distracted and were leaving her. The mother wolf couldn't help but howl to the sky in sadness and despair. Xia Huanhuan felt guilty. It was all her fault for being too indecisive. She should have used space to teleport to the side of the gangsters last night and then killed them directly so that they would not be caught off guard by the sudden attack early in the morning. The Snow Wolf Pack came to save her child, but in the end, they lost their own child. Xia Huanhuan walked over, hugged the dying Snow Wolf in her arms, looked at the mother wolf, and whispered, Don't worry. I will do my best to save it. The mother wolf seemed to know that Xia Huanhuan was probably the only one who could save her child at this moment, so she hesitated for a long time, licked the fur of the wolf cub in Xia Huanhuan's arms, but still couldn't bear to abandon her child and leave alone. Suddenly, a panicked voice came. Huanhuan.
You
don't move. Xia Huanhuan trembled all over. Looking back, she saw Li Zhan holding a wooden gun and aiming at the mother wolf who was licking her cub with deep affection. Don't shoot! Xia Huanhuan shouted in horror. At the same time, the mother wolf seemed to sense the danger and finally had to harden her heart and quickly jumped into the bushes and disappeared. Li Zhan breathed a sigh of relief, but his whole body was soaked with cold sweat. At that moment, he was more nervous and fearful than ever before. He had never experienced this before, even on the battlefield, when facing a more vicious enemy. It was just because he was afraid to use the weapon. Even though he was confident that his shooting skills could hit the target every time, he still didn't dare to pull the trigger, fearing that if there was any mistake, he would hurt the person he cherished most in his life. Fortunately, the wolf ran away by itself, and fortunately, it didn't hurt his wife. Li Zhan rushed to Xia Huanhuan, hugged her in his arms, and asked in a trembling voice, Huanhuan, I'm sorry, I'm late. Xia Huanhuan finally came to her senses at this time, tears streaming down her face, and she couldn't help but raise her hand and punch him in the chest. You rascal! Why did you come only now? Since she knew that the little cubs were lost, the strings in her mind have been tense. She didn't dare to relax or cry. She trudged step by step in the deserted mountains and old forests in the dark, looking for them bit by bit.
Why?
This rascal is not with her? Why did he come only now? Li Zhan hugged Xia Huanhuan with heartache and guilt, letting her beat and scold him. It was his fault as a husband and father. Fortunately, he had just finished his mission and returned to Beijing, so the urgent telegram from the military liaison station could be delivered to him as soon as possible. After reading the telegram, he almost didn't even have time to report to the higher-ups and drove the military jeep all the way back to Qingshui village. Bai Zihan, Wei Bin, and Lu Xiangdong did not say a word and followed him all the way, risking the charge of violating discipline. They entered the village at about midnight. Secretary Zhao quickly explained the situation to him and gave him the location of the den in the mountain that Lu Lan mentioned. As he was talking, Zhou Qiuhe rushed over, almost crying, saying that Xia Huanhuan was missing. Li Zhan knew without thinking that she must have gone into the mountains alone to find a few cubs. He was extremely anxious and immediately went into the mountains with Bai Zihan and the others in the middle of the night. Even though they often went to the deep mountains and old forests to carry out missions or training, it took them half the night to reach the den mentioned by Lu Lan and follow the remaining traces there to find the place where several gangsters confronted the wolf pack. They arrived almost at the last minute. At this moment, Bai Zihan, Wei Bin, Lu Xiangdong, and the others had already captured several gangsters who were bitten by wolves or shot by Li Zhan. Except for the gangster leader who was bitten in the throat by the female wolf just now, the other three were only injured, but not in danger of life. Xia Huanhuan was weak for a while, scolded Li Zhan, and then immediately came to her senses and checked the condition of the wolf cub in her arms. It was shot in the abdomen, bleeding a lot, and she didn't know if the internal organs were injured. Xia Huanhuan was somewhat at a loss and was almost crying in anxiety. She learned Chinese medicine from Yang Qiushi and knew nothing about Western medicine and surgery. Even if she brought it back to the space now, she had no other way except spiritual spring water. But according to experience, spiritual spring water can at most stop bleeding and speed up wound healing. But if the internal organs are really injured, it is not enough to use spiritual spring water alone. The injured wolf last night was injured in the leg. Although she dug out the bullet, the wound left was also very large. Now this little wolf was shot in the abdomen. She didn't dare to dig out the bullet rashly, for fear of hurting its internal organs. Li Zhan saw this and said to Wei Bin, please make a fire. Xia Huanhuan was stunned for a moment, not quite understanding what Li Zhan was going to do. Xiao Wen and Yan Yan, Yi and Yao Yao also came over at this time, squatting beside the little wolf, worried and sad. Mom, the little puppy is sick. Mom, please save the little puppy. Xiao Wen corrected. This is not a little puppy, it is a little wolf cub. Yen Yen, Yi and Yao Yao raised their little faces to look at their big brother, and then changed their name, saying in a baby voice, Mom, save the little wolf is so pitiful. Li Zhan raised his big hand and rubbed the little heads of the three little guys and whispered, Don't worry. Dad will definitely save the little wolf. The triplets looked up at Li Zhan again, and then, as if they had discussed it, they all ran to hide behind Xia Huan, holding their mother's clothes tightly with their little hands, and then poked out their three little heads and looked at Li Zhan timidly. Bai Zihan on the side laughed. Li Zhan, your three little cubs haven't forgotten you again, have they? Li Zhan's mouth twitched. He rolled his eyes at Bai Zihan and said, If you don't speak, no one will think you are dumb. These three little ungrateful ones, didn't he just come back on the 15th day of the first lunar month? It's only been a few days, and they are estranged again? However, saving the little wolf cub is the most important thing now. Wei Bin carried matches with him, and he and Lu Xiangdong quickly collected some dry branches and made a fire. Li Zhan took out the dagger he carried with him and burned it on the fire to disinfect it. Xia Huan understood that Li Zhan was going to dig open the wound for the little wolf cub and take out the bullet.
You
want to take out the bullet for the little wolf cub? Xia Huan asked softly. Li Zhan nodded and said yes. Also, we need to see if the shot has injured the internal organs. If so, we need to sew them urgently, otherwise, it will be dangerous. At this time, Lu Xiangdong also took out a small box, which actually contained a small bottle of alcohol, as well as needles and catgut similar to those used for sewing. Xia Huan was stunned. You still carry these things with you? Bai Zihan helped Li Zhan hold the wolf cub down and fix it to prevent it from running away in pain when the bullet is removed. In addition to making the wound more serious, it may also hurt people. Li Zhan did not even raise his head, checked the wolf cub's wound, and said, yes. When performing a mission, no one knows whether they will be injured. Later, Brother Fu San prepared this small medical box, which is full of professional medical equipment. At least it can allow the brothers to deal with wounds in time and save their lives in case of emergency. Xia Huan heard it and felt as if something was blocking her throat, and her nose was a little sour and she couldn't speak. She knew that Li Zhan's job inevitably involves danger, but she had no idea. Now that they all carried medical kits for emergency wound treatment, she couldn't help but feel scared. Li Zhan confirmed the wound and was about to cut. He looked up at Xia Huan and smiled. Huan, take the children and walk away first. I'm afraid of scaring the children here. Besides, it's not safe if the wolf cubs run away. Don't worry. We have also treated military dogs on missions before. I think the body structure of wolves is similar, so nothing will go wrong. Xia Huan listened and had to walk away with Xiao Wen and the triplets. After a while, the wolf cub's painful roar came from Li Zhan's side. Fortunately, Bai Zihan, Wei Bin and Lu Xiangdong held the wolf cub in advance, and the wolf's mouth was stuck with a thick branch. Although the wolf cub roared in pain and anger, it was unable to hurt anyone. The bullet was taken out. Fortunately, it was a mortar. Li Zhan quickly sutured the wound, and the bleeding stopped. Xia Huan asked Xiao Wen to look after the triplets, and she went forward to check. She unscrewed the kettle she brought up the mountain, walked over, and wanted to feed the wolf cub some water. The water in the kettle was the spiritual spring water in her space, which could at least save its life. Li Zhan hurriedly grabbed her and said, no matter how small this wolf is, it is still wild and will hurt you soon. Xia Huan looked at its dying appearance, shook her head, and said, it should be fine. You can pull the stick out of its mouth. Several grown men looked at each other and looked at Li Zhan hesitantly. Although Li Zhan was also worried, he still nodded. Although the wolf cub didn't know these men, it still trusted Xia Huan. Moreover, now that the bullet in the wound had been removed, it didn't feel the same pain as before. Although it was a wolf, it also realized that these people were trying to save it. Therefore, after the stick was pulled out, it did not try to attack people with its teeth bared. Instead, it meekly put its mouth to the mouth of Xia Huanhuan's water bottle and gulped down the water. Li Zhan and Bai Zihan couldn't help but secretly marvel at this. Wolves are a very smart tribe. Unless they have to, they will not confront humans head-on. Of course, they will not take the initiative to approach humans. Generally, they will stay away from humans. They originally thought that this time the gangsters and the wolf pack clashed because the gangsters invaded their living range, commonly known as their home, so of course they had to fight to the death. But Xia Huanhuan and the children were also intruders in the strict sense, but they were unharmed. This was too strange. Sister-in-law, this little wolf cub seems to like you very much. Bai Zihan smiled. Xia Huanhuan had already thought of a pretext and said, I guess it was because I rescued a few wolf cubs from the trap I set a few days ago, and this one was one of them. Maybe it remembered me. Li Zhan looked at his wife thoughtfully but didn't say anything else. The wolf cub's injury was treated urgently, and the group planned to return to the village quickly. After all, this is deep in the mountains and old forests. If the wolves come back to attack, or if a blind bear is attracted by the smell of blood, it will be even more dangerous. Immediately, Wei Bin and Lu Xiangdong looked at the 3 surviving gangsters with guns and asked them to carry the boss who was about to die by the wolves and go down the mountain first. Xia Huanhuan, Li Zhan, and Bai Zihan took the cubs and held the injured wolf cubs. They were afraid that the cubs would see something they shouldn't see and be scared, so they followed a little further away. After a while, they met the villagers who were searching the mountain, and everyone went down the mountain together. The militia immediately interrogated the surviving criminals, only to find out that the dead criminal was Lu Lan's former lover, Li Qiaoqiao's biological father. This man committed crimes when he was young, such as theft and home robbery. This time, before the new year, Lu Lan had a falling out with her second son Li Chong, and after they separated and lived separately, in order to drive away Xia Huanhuan, make Li Zhan change his mind, and be a good son who was filial to her, she secretly went to find her former lover and planned a vicious plan to kidnap the triplets. The lover knew that Lu Lan's son was a soldier and was unwilling to take the risk. But later, Lu Lan told her that Li Zhan was not at home all year round, and the allowance he sent back was kept by his wife, so she might be able to make a lot of money. That's when she was tempted and took the risk. Unexpectedly, she even lost her life. Several surviving criminals and Lu Lan confessed their crimes. At the county police station, Zhang Hai and several brothers came and took the criminals away. They chased the gang of Lu Lan's lovers for a long time, but unfortunately, they always slipped away. Unexpectedly, with the help of the wolves in the deep mountains, they caught them all without leaving a single one. As for Lu Lan, she had always been worried that no one would take care of her in her old age, but she didn't have to worry about it anymore. Because of instigating kidnapping and even suspected of instigating murder, she was directly sentenced to 20 years of labor reform. I'm afraid she will have to rely on the state for the rest of her life. Before Lu Lan was taken to the police car, she cried and wanted to catch Li Zhan and cry for mercy, trying to get Li Zhan to plead for her and not to arrest her. The villagers were also amazed at this incident. Several vicious criminals, together with Lu Lan, kidnapped 3 one-year-old cubs who had just learned to run and took them to the deep mountains. As a result, they were unlucky and encountered a pack of wolves. As a result, the 3 cubs and Xiaowen who chased them were unharmed, but the criminals were killed or injured and were directly wiped out. Isn't it amazing? If you ask me, the wild wolves in the mountains are also human-like. Those criminals, with their earth and wood warehouses, broke into the wolves' territory. The wolves felt threatened, so they would definitely bite them to death. Xiaowen and 3 one-year-old children are not a threat to the wolves, so the wolves didn't hurt them. That's not necessarily true. The winter isn't over yet, and we humans can grow our own food, but we still can't get enough to eat. The wolves in the mountains must have been hungry for the whole winter. How could they bear to see a child who has no ability to resist? Oh, have you heard of the rumor about the wolf boy? The child was raised by a mother wolf since he was a child. Anyway, I still think this group of wolves is pretty good. They haven't harmed our crops, livestock, or villagers, and now they have saved a few cubs. That's right. If it weren't for this, the county would have sent people into the mountains to hunt wolves long ago. Xia Huanhuan also heard a lot of gossip in the village. She was slightly relieved to hear that they all had a high opinion of the wolf pack and did not clamor to go into the mountains to hunt wolves. This time, it was really thanks to the wolf pack, otherwise, the children would be in great danger. Seeing that the children and Xia Huanhuan had returned safely, Lin Yiru cried again and felt relieved. She hurried to prepare dinner to entertain Bai Zihan, Wei Bin, and Lu Xiangdong. After dinner, Bai Zihan and the other two said they had to go back first. After all, they followed Li Zhan and ran here without even having time to write a report. If they didn't go back quickly, they would definitely be punished. Li Zhan decided to stay for half a day before going back. His children were kidnapped by criminals. At such an urgent and dangerous moment, he was not with his wife, and he had to let Xia Huanhuan run into the mountains alone to save the children. This made him feel guilty. Even if he had to be punished, he couldn't go back immediately. Bai Zihan and his men drove the army's jeep away. Bai Zihan patted Li Zhan on the shoulder and said, "Don't worry, we will help you explain to the division commander when we go back." Li Zhan smiled and said, "Don't worry about me. Admit your mistakes and don't be stubborn. I will go back and receive the punishment myself." Bai Zihan didn't say anything else. Although it was excusable, the army was not other places, and the punishment was bound to be carried. However, they didn't make any mistakes, so it shouldn't be really serious. Before starting the jeep, Bai Zihan suddenly stuck his head out of the window and said, "By the way, I always forgot to say it." From the bodies of those criminals, including their confessions, it seems that they didn't hear that they had any Brownings with guns. But the shot that the boss who was bitten to death by the wolf seemed to be Browning. This matter just sounds strange. Anyway, you should be careful. Li Zhan certainly couldn't ignore what Bai Zihan noticed. Although the gang leader was attacked by wolves later, and the wound on the wooden cannon was damaged and difficult to distinguish, he could still tell at a glance that the wound was caused by Browning's bullet. But now, Browning has not been found yet, which is a worrying thing. Li Zhan came back after sending Bai Zihan and the others away. Xia Huanhuan just came back to her senses. As soon as the triplets were not by her side, she couldn't help but get up and look for them. This time, they encountered such a dangerous thing. Wasn't it because she was too careless and left them to go to Beijing? She never wanted to experience such a thing again. Li Zhan also saw that Xia Huanhuan was wrong, so he had to send a telegram back and asked for a few more days of leave to accompany Xia Huanhuan at home. Every time she had a nightmare in the middle of the night, he would hold her in his arms and comfort her over and over again. Xia Huanhuan also felt that she was quite ashamed, but at the same time, she felt warm in her heart. Fortunately, Li Zhan was with her through this period of fear and stress reaction. The wolf cub was brought back to Li's home. Because Xia Huanhuan fed it spiritual spring water every day and applied the best external medicine to its wounds, the wolf cub recovered quickly. Xiaowen, Xiaowu, Beibei, and the triplets all liked the wolf cub very much and actively fed it every day. By the time Li Zhan had to return to the army, the wolf cub's wounds had almost healed. After reluctantly sending Li Zhan away, Xia Huanhuan gave Lin Yiru a word and teleported the wolf cub to the mountains again through space. Even though the wolf cub got along well with the other cubs at home, it was a wolf after all, and it was better for it to live with its own tribe. Moreover, Xia Huanhuan still remembered clearly the look that the wolf cub's mother gave her before she cruelly abandoned her child and ran into the mountains that day. She must bring the wolf cub back to the mother wolf. As if she smelled her scent, Xia Huanhuan waited for a while and turned out the mother wolf from the dense bushes. When the wolf cub saw its mother, it immediately cried happily and ran towards her. Xia Huanhuan did not get closer. She released 2 or 3 wild boars from the space to thank the wolf pack for saving her children. She waited until the wolf pack quietly disappeared into the forest again before she entered the space again and returned home. When it was time for dinner, the cubs ran excitedly to feed the wolf cub, only to find that the wolf cub was gone. Xiaowen, Xiaowu, and Beibei were fine. After all, they were grown up. After hearing Xia Huanhuan say that the wolf cub had returned to the wolf pack in the mountains, although they were sad, they still accepted this fact. The three little ones refused to obey. As if they had agreed to do so, they lay in the yard and cried and made a fuss. Xia Huanhuan was angry and amused.
How old are they?
Who did they learn this from? However, the little ones were helpless, and Xia Huanhuan forced them into the house one by one. They howled for a long time, and then each of them was given an apple to chew, and they temporarily put aside the matter of the little wolf. However, in the next half-month, they woke up every day and still had to run to the place where the little wolf cubs were raised to take a look before they would stop. Xia Huanhuan thought about raising a dog at home so that when the cubs go out to play in the future, the dog can follow them, and in case they encounter human traffickers or something, it can still protect the owner. However, people are not well fed now, so raising a dog is a bit of a luxury, and you have to choose a dog with a good temper. I will discuss it with Li Zhan and decide. In the afternoon, Xia Huanhuan and Lin Yiru divided the tofu, soaked bean sprouts and eggs, and sent them to the homes of the villagers who helped to find the children in the mountains. Each family received a piece of tofu, a basket of bean sprouts, and 10 eggs. Every family was delighted. The folks in the village are simple and honest. Although there are quarrels and conflicts between families on weekdays, there are not many families that end up estranged forever. Most of them are still harmonious. When a family encounters something, such as weddings or funerals, building a house, or the children being taken away, other families are generally still enthusiastic to help. It is normal for the family being helped to express their gratitude, but there are only a few families who are as generous as Xia Huanhuan and directly give 10 eggs to each family. After hearing about it, Li Chang and Wang Guixiang regretted it. If they had known that Xia Huanhuan was so generous, they would have followed her into the mountains to help find the children. Anyway, in the end, the couple found the children themselves, and the other people in the village just went to make soy sauce. They only had so many things, which was a big loss. However, because of Lu Lan's bad deeds, as Lu Lan's son, Li Chang's reputation in the village became worse. However, he and Wang Guixiang and his wife had already fallen out with Lu Lan, so they were not suspected of being Lu Lan's accomplices. The two were thick-skinned, so they continued to live their own lives in Qingshui village. In the late second month of the lunar calendar, farming work began to get busy. Xia Huanhuan went to see Secretary Zhao again. Secretary Zhao looked at Xia Huanhuan in surprise. Li Zhan's wife, you mean? Growing ginseng? Xia Huanhuan nodded and said, I heard that ginseng is sold at a very high price in pharmacies in Beijing. If we can get some, we can dig it out and sell it to the city later, and our village can also make a lot of money. I saw ginseng seeds for sale in the county last time. Now is the planting season. Besides, there are dense forests near our village, so we don't have to occupy collective arable land. We can just plant it under the forest in the mountains, which doesn't take much effort.
But,
Xia Huanhuan said, then changed the subject and said shyly, I've heard all this too. I don't know whether it is allowed to be planted or not, and whether there are any risks. I just think that everyone's life is hard. If there is some extra income, then everyone will definitely welcome it. But if you are afraid of risks, then Secretary Zhao, just pretend I never said anything about this. Xia Huanhuan had thought about growing ginseng before. There are abundant mountains and forests here, and the humus layer of fallen leaves is thick, and the temperature is suitable. It is a very good environment for growing ginseng. Although it is artificially cultivated, it is also considered a semi-wild forest ginseng. Moreover, ginseng has a long growth cycle, and the longer it grows, the more precious it is. It takes 3 years to achieve a small harvest, and 6 years to grow to a good size and quality. Plant it now, and don't rush to sell it. After 3 to 5 years, the policy will be more and more relaxed, and then sell it. In fact, it has also been allowed. However, it seems that this matter is definitely very risky now. At most, she will make a suggestion, and she will not be too enthusiastic to promote this matter. Otherwise, if something goes wrong in the future, being blamed is a small matter. She may become the scapegoat and implicate Li Zhan. Secretary Zhao pondered for a moment. He has been to school and has been to the county town of Jingshi in his early years. Of course, he knows that what Xia Huanhuan said is feasible. But there are risks, that is for sure. The requirements given by the higher-ups are to grow grain. If you grow more cash crops such as cotton and beans, it may not work and you will be criticized in a notice, let alone growing ginseng. However, it is also a fact that everyone's life is hard. As the secretary of the commune, it is his duty to lead everyone to get rich. After thinking about it, Secretary Zhao looked up, looked at Xia Huanhuan firmly and said, "Li Zhan's wife, your suggestion is very good. I will talk to each village about this matter and ask for their opinions. Don't show up for this matter and pretend you don't know in front of others in the future. If everyone agrees to do it, they can pool their money privately to buy seeds and then start working." After hearing this, Xia Huanhuan couldn't help but admire Secretary Zhao in her heart. For this kind of thing, there are many small cadres with some positions who not only disagree, but also obstruct others from doing it for their own sake. Secretary Zhao is willing to take the lead, which is already very commendable. Moreover, he asked her to pretend that she didn't know in front of others in the future, which was also to clear her out. If something really happened, it would not be found that it was her proposal. Xia Huanhuan had ready-made ginseng seeds in her space. She originally planned to provide the seeds for free if Secretary Zhao agreed.
But now,
she changed her mind. Human nature is unpredictable. If she directly provided the seeds for free, the people in the commune would not pay much, so they would definitely not be so concerned in the future. If they were exposed, they would definitely confess immediately. It would be better for Secretary Zhao to let everyone pool money to buy seeds. In this way, everyone would pay money, and they would definitely pay more attention to it. Xia Huanhuan came back. She went to Luocheng again, gave him the ginseng seeds, and asked him to find someone to go to the black market and sell them to the people in their commune. Jingshi. After Li Zhan returned to the team, he was still punished. However, considering that he had his reasons and that they had just finished their mission and were in a rest period, the impact was not that bad, so he was only asked to reflect on himself and was fined 1 month's allowance. Li Zhan had nothing to say and actively accepted the criticism. One day, 2 of his soldiers were peeking at his door, looking like they had something to say. Li Zhan saw them looking in several times and finally couldn't stand it anymore. He looked up and said, "Come in." The 2 men had no choice but to come in. They saluted at attention and shouted, "Report." Li Zhan asked, "What's the matter?" "Go ahead." The 2 pushed each other and motioned for the other to speak. Li Zhan sighed and said, "Wu Xiao, you go." When Xia Huanhuan went to the camp to hold her wedding, Wu Xiao once asked Xia Huanhuan if she had a younger sister or cousin, hoping that his sister-in-law would introduce a beautiful wife to her. But of course this hope was ultimately dashed, and he is still single. When his name was called, Wu Xiao could only sigh, then muster up his courage and said, "Captain. Captain, I told you not to be angry. It's just. Didn't you ask us to go to the black market during our vacation to ask if there was anyone selling jade from the countryside before the new year, and who the buyer was?" Li Zhan was stunned for a moment. Then he remembered. This happened. 3 little kids were just taken away from home, and he had almost forgotten about it. Of course. It might also be that he subconsciously didn't want to pursue it any further. No matter what secrets Huanhuan hides, she is his wife. Since she refused to tell him, perhaps she had other considerations. It would be too dishonest for him to explore behind her. However, he had asked Wu Xia and the others to help investigate before, and now that they had found out, he didn't intend to listen anymore. It was a bit too much, so he didn't say anything. Seeing that Li Zhan didn't respond, Wu Xiao had to continue. Otherwise, he would be suffocated. Jiafeng and I went to the black market to inquire for a few days, and there was indeed a guy from the countryside selling jade, and the jade was bought by a local tyrant in that area named Dahe. We checked that Dahe again. And then, Wu Xiao said here, looking up at Li Zhan. Li Zhan's heart still sank. Now the jade pendant is in Huanhuan's hand, but what Wu Xiao found out was that it was bought by a ruffian born and bred in Beijing. It can only mean that there must be some connection between his wife and this Dahe. However, Huan Huan was only taken to Beijing by Bai Zihan to visit him when he was injured the year before last, and she also came to visit relatives and stayed for a few days last year. How did she know the local snake in the black market in Beijing? Then what happened?
Go on.
Li Zhan said with a frown. Wu Xiao scratched his head and said, "Just 2 days ago, we secretly followed Dahe and wanted to investigate more deeply, and then we saw him walking out of a courtyard house with a female comrade." That female comrade, Wu Xiao said, and couldn't help touching Jiefeng next to him with his hand. Jiefeng also felt that Wu Xiao was a little bit unkind, so he ended the conversation and said, "Wu Xiao and I both think that female comrade is a bit like sister-in-law." After listening to this, Li Zhan frowned even more and asked, 2 days ago you mentioned. How many days ago exactly? Morning or afternoon? It was about 6 days ago, no, 7 days ago, around 1 or 2 in the afternoon. Li Zhan recalled in his mind. The time was wrong. If it was 7 days ago, that day was exactly the day when the 3 kids in the family were taken away by those gangsters. If Huan Huan was in Jingshu in the afternoon, no matter how fast she was, it was impossible for her to return to Qingshui village in the same afternoon. Even if he and Bai Zihan drove the jeep all the way in a hurry at that time, it took them 4 or 5 hours to get back. Wu Xiao and Jiefeng saw that Li Zhan was silent, but his expression was very serious, and they both felt a little regretful. They could just hold it in. Why did they tell the captain about this? The captain and his sister-in-law love each other so much. What if they quarrel again because of their talkativeness?
That.
Captain, it is also possible that Jiefeng and I have recognized the wrong person. There are many people who look alike in this world.
Wu Xiao said softly.
Jiefeng also said quickly, I also think it is unlikely. Captain, don't take it to heart. Li Zhan looked up at this time and asked, where is the address of the courtyard house you said they came out of? Wu Xiao and Jiefeng looked at each other, regret in their eyes. It's over. It seems that they have really poked a hornet's nest this time. After telling Li Zhan the address of the courtyard house, the two left worriedly. Li Zhan held the paper with the address in his hand, hesitant. Let's stop here and don't explore it further, right?
Or
go to the courtyard house and have a look? After hesitating for a long time, Li Zhan decided to go and have a look. However, the door of the courtyard house was locked and there was no one. But it was easy to ask around. Li Zhan pulled an old lady in the alley and pretended to ask for directions. Seeing that she was still holding the vegetables she bought in her hands, he enthusiastically helped her carry the things. After a few words, he found out. This family, the surname is Luo. The old man was originally qualified to live in the compound, but after living there for a few years, he retired and returned to live in this house. The old man passed away 2 years ago, and the house was given to his son. However, his son and daughter-in-law work in Shanghai and do not live here. But his grandson, Luo Cheng, would come back from time to time to stay for a day or two, clean and repair the house. Li Zhan sent the old lady to the door of his house, then thanked her and left. Seeing that Li Zhan was not only handsome but also kind-hearted, the old lady stood at the door for a long time without thinking.
Alas.
With such a good character, she should have asked him what his name was and what he did. Maybe he could become her son-in-law in the future? Li Zhan naturally couldn't understand the old lady's thoughts. He thought about this matter while walking. The surname is Luo. He always felt that the surname was a little familiar. He had never heard of the name Luo Cheng. However, if the female comrade that Wu Xiao and Jiefeng mentioned was really Huan Huan, then how could she know someone like Luo Cheng? After a few days, Li Zhan still felt uneasy. It was a coincidence that he went to the courtyard again this time. Luo Cheng happened to come back, and Dahe was also talking at his house. Li Zhan had secretly checked Dahe in the past few days, therefore, he recognized her at once. However, he was still hesitating whether he should ask rashly. If the female comrade that day was not Huan Huan, it would be too offensive for him to ask rashly. However, Luo Cheng has been active in the gray area of the black market for many years, and his vigilance is no weaker than Li Zhan. Although Li Zhan has tried to be careful, Luo Cheng still found out the flaw. Luo Cheng was not vague. He walked over directly and asked straight to the point. Brother, do you have something to talk to us about? Li Zhan saw that the other party had asked before he asked, so he nodded frankly and frowned. I have something to ask you. Luo Cheng was about the same height as Li Zhan, and he was also very handsome and energetic. Li Zhan felt inexplicably unhappy. He looked good, but definitely not as handsome as him. It was impossible for his wife to leave him and fall for this guy. Luo Cheng was stunned by Li Zhan's honesty, but he remained calm. Although this alley was secluded, it was not a place to talk after all, so he smiled and said, I don't deserve your advice. But this is not a place to talk. If you don't mind, come sit in my yard? Li Zhan nodded and said, okay. Luo Cheng couldn't help but twitch his lips. Isn't this too impolite? However, he was the one who made the invitation, so naturally he didn't want to take it back now. Otherwise it would seem as if he was afraid of the other party. Seeing this, Dahe couldn't help but wink at Luo Cheng, meaning to ask if he wanted to find someone to come over. After all, the business they were doing couldn't be done in the open. The man in front of him was tall and strong, and he looked righteous. I'm afraid he was a plainclothes officer. If that was the case, Brother Luo would still lead him to his yard. Wouldn't that be a trap? Luo Cheng shook his head slightly and motioned Dahe to go first. He has been in this business for so long, on the one hand, because he is very courageous and dares to take risks. On the other hand, he was not willing to take risks, but also because his identity was more or less protective, and ordinary people could not easily touch him. Seeing this, Dahe had no choice but to leave obediently. Luo Cheng let Li Zhan into the yard. The yard was well maintained. It was spring, and tender green buds were emerging on the grapevines in the yard, which looked full of vitality. Luo Cheng closed the door, turned around, and looked at Li Zhan with scrutiny, waiting for Li Zhan to speak. Naturally, he also felt the hostility from Li Zhan. He was not stupid to invite someone to come in and sit down. Would he really pour tea to entertain the guest? Li Zhan was not vague. He turned around and asked directly, Do you know someone named Xia Huanhuan? Luo Cheng narrowed his eyes slightly, but still quickly replied calmly, No, I haven't heard of her. He had done business with Xia Huanhuan so many times, even though Xia Huanhuan used the alias Dong Wan and had never taken the initiative to tell him any information other than the pseudonym and the fact that she was married and had 3 children. But Luo Cheng still found out some information, although it was secretly, and he never let the cat out of the bag in front of Xia Huanhuan. After all, Xia Huanhuan once said that if you want to do business with her, first you can't ask her where the things come from, and second you can't ask about her affairs. He violated the second rule, but there was nothing he could do. Xia Huanhuan was cautious. In this business, he would be more cautious than Xia Huanhuan. Otherwise, he would have died countless times. Li Zhan stared at Luo Cheng scrutinizingly, and then continued to ask, About 10 days ago, a female comrade left your house with your friend who just left. Who is that female comrade to you? This time, Luo Cheng narrowed his eyes dangerously. 10 days ago? Should it be when Xia Huanhuan came to buy the courtyard house? However, this is not the point. Did the man in front of him have his eyes on this place, on him and Dahe 10 days ago? Or, just as Dahe expected, this man is a plainclothes policeman and the investigation led to them? Or, is there any connection between this man and Xia Huanhuan?
Or,
they controlled Xia Huanhuan and then followed the clues and found them? 10 days ago?
Well,
my memory is not very good. I don't remember.
But
it should be my girlfriend. Otherwise, not just any woman can come into my house. Luo Cheng's words were obviously ruffian-like, and he spoke half-truthfully. A dark color flashed across Li Zhan's eyes for a moment, but it disappeared in a flash. Looking at Luo Cheng's attitude, he knew that the other party should be alert and could not ask anything more. Moreover, for some reason, he inexplicably did not want to ask anything more. So he nodded and walked towards the door, saying, Sorry for bothering you. Wait a minute. Luo Cheng stopped him. Brother, you came to my house without any reason, asking questions, and now you are leaving after asking. You should at least tell me your name and what you do, right? Li Zhan turned around and did not intend to lie, so he said directly, My name is Li Zhan. I won't reveal what I do. I'm sorry for being presumptuous today. When Luo Cheng heard the name, he immediately became unhappy. Since he had looked into Xia Huanhuan's affairs, he naturally knew that the man she married was called Li Zhan, and he was a soldier. Moreover, she gave birth to 3 sons for this man, 3 babies in one pregnancy. Luo Cheng could always make himself more free and easy, and comforted himself in his heart that he met Xia Huanhuan too late. Otherwise, Xia Huanhuan would not have chosen her man instead of himself.
But now,
seeing Li Zhan in person, Luo Cheng suddenly became less confident. Isn't it just that she looks a little better than him? And she seems to be a little taller than him, and it seems that her muscles are more solid than his? The childish masculine competitive instinct in Luo Cheng's heart was ignited in an instant. Luo Cheng said with a sneer on the corner of his lips, Li Zhan? I'm afraid you have been eyeing us for a long time. Since we meet today, are you interested in practicing with me? Li Zhan frowned slightly and said lightly, If you mean the questions I asked today, I apologize. We can't just practice a few moves or anything like that. We have discipline. As he said that, he continued to walk towards the door. Luo Cheng felt even more unhappy. He was not the kind of person who would easily fight with others. But today, he took the initiative to issue a challenge, but was directly rejected. This was simply a slap in his face, and looked down on him. Li Zhan had just taken a few steps when he suddenly felt a gust of wind behind his ear. He immediately turned his head quickly to avoid it and raised his arm to block. In a flash, the two had already exchanged several moves. Luo Cheng didn't get the upper hand, but he secretly admired him in his heart. This man's skills are not bad, at least not worse than his. However, Luo Cheng was not willing to admit defeat. It was considered a sneak attack by him, so he was actually a little careless, just to force Li Zhan to take action. Next, he will get serious. Good skills.
Come on.
Luo Cheng grinned and laughed a little roguely. As he spoke, he rushed over without waiting for Li Zhan to refuse. Li Zhan was a little depressed. While fighting back, he said restrainedly, If you are worried that your business will be reported or leaked by me, there is no need to worry. I am not here for this. However, Luo Cheng had no intention of stopping. Luo Cheng learned grappling and some other martial arts from his grandfather since he was a child. In the past few years, he has often used them because he has been working outside, so he is very proficient. Li Zhan was trained in actual combat. His reaction, strength, and precision and effectiveness of movements are all top-notch. His moves are not fancy, but very practical. After a few rounds, Luo Cheng's heart sank. Although he didn't want to admit it, he had to admit that if he continued to fight, his skills and habits would be observed by Li Zhan. By then, it would not be the current seemingly equal match, but would turn into a one-sided strength crushing. After all, Li Zhan is still restraining and giving in. His style of play is more defensive than offensive, and it is obvious that he is not using his full strength. While they were fighting, there was a sudden knock on the door. Li Zhan and Luo Cheng couldn't help but be stunned for a moment, and they both stopped at the right time. Luo Cheng looked at Li Zhan with some dissatisfaction, and then went to open the door. Fu Nanjing stood at the door and asked with a smile, Luo Cheng, why are you going to this door in broad daylight? He's not doing anything with some female comrade, is he? As he said this, he looked into the yard, and when he saw Li Zhan, Fu Nanjing was stunned. How did these two people who had nothing in common get in touch with each other? Why are you here? Li Zhan was also stunned. Fu Nanjing knew this Luo Cheng. Suddenly, he remembered. A few years ago, when he went to the Fu family in the compound, Grandpa Fu often played chess with an old man named Luo. However, not long after, Grandpa Luo pushed it down and moved out, and later passed away. Could it be that the old man Luo was Luo Cheng's grandfather? If so, then it would make sense that Fu Nanjing knew Luo Cheng. Luo Cheng was also puzzled and asked, Do you know each other? Li Zhan glanced at Luo Cheng and shouted, Third brother. Luo Cheng. Isn't Xia Huanhuan's man a poor country boy who served in the army? How did he know Fu Nanjing who grew up in the compound? However, he figured it out quickly. Li Zhan's skills are not bad, and the compelling aura emanating from his body, although not easy to detect, is definitely something that only people who have experienced many life and death situations will have. Li Zhan's position is not low, and it is normal for him to know people from the Fu family. After thinking about this, Luo Cheng felt even more depressed. It would be fine if he was not as skilled as others, but now even his identity and profession are not as good as others. Any man would be unhappy. Fu Nanjing scratched his head and smiled. This is really a coincidence. I also said that when there is a chance, I want to introduce you to each other. It's just that both of you are busy, and it's rare for you to go back to Beijing, so I haven't succeeded. As a result, you got to know each other first. He couldn't help asking, but how did you get to know each other? Luo Cheng and Li Zhan were both speechless. They couldn't tell Fu Nanjing that they were just gesticulating back and forth. As for knowing each other, it's hard to say. Luo Cheng coughed and said, "We met on the street. Just now."
Fu Nanzeng.
Li Zhan said, "Third brother, I have something else to do, so I'll leave first." Fu Nanjing suddenly remembered that day when he ran into a female comrade who looked like Xia Huanhuan coming out of Luo Cheng's place at the entrance of the alley.
Li Zhan.
Didn't she know something, so she deliberately tracked her down here, right? Thinking of this, Fu Nanjing couldn't help but feel a little worried. He subconsciously stopped Li Zhan and said with a smile, "Don't. I wanted to introduce you to each other anyway. It's a rare meeting today. Let's have a meal together. By the way, Luo Cheng, didn't a girl come to your place 10 days ago? Tell me honestly, are you interested in her? Or should you call her over too?" Luo Cheng was stunned. What was Fu Nanjing talking about? Didn't he explain it last time? Why did he suddenly bring it up again? Before he could express his doubts, Fu Nanjing had already spoken again. "Li Zhan, don't be scared when you see that girl. I was scared the last time I ran into her. She looks so much like Huanhuan that I almost made a mistake for her." Li Zhan couldn't help but be stunned when he heard that. The 10 days ago that Fu Nanjing mentioned was the time when he came to ask this time, right? Luo Cheng understood now that Fu Nanjing was asking him to help Lai. Luo Cheng, is that girl from the northeast? She came here to visit relatives and hasn't gone back yet, right? Fu Nanjing asked, while trying to wink at him calmly. Luo Cheng sighed and had to follow the lead and said, "Fu Nanjing, don't talk nonsense. She's already engaged in the village and has returned to her hometown in the northeast. Aren't you ruining the girl's reputation by saying this?" Fu Nanjing breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Luo Cheng was smart enough to smooth over the matter. No matter whether the girl last time was Xia Huanhuan or not, he didn't want Li Zhan and Xia Huanhuan to have a rift because of it. In the end, it seemed that he had decided to stand on Xia Huanhuan's side. There was no way. Li Zhan was a grown man, and Xia Huanhuan was very likely his sister. Even if his sister was wrong, he still had to choose to protect his sister. After hearing this, Li Zhan's expression really eased a little. Although he still felt it was a bit strange, but maybe Wu Xiao and Jiefeng really had misjudged the person. Otherwise, how to explain that Huanhuan was in Beijing in the afternoon and in the village at the same time in the afternoon and force Lulan to confess, and then went into the mountains alone to find a few guys? "Let's go. Luo Cheng will treat you to the copper furnace mutton hot pot at Donglishan today." Fu Nanjing smiled a little guilty. Luo Cheng was helpless. "Why am I treating?" Fu Nanjing glared at him and said coldly, "Because you have money. Besides, he's in the wrong. Why would he mess with his sister for no reason?" Li Zhan didn't really want to have dinner with Luo Cheng. Although according to Fu Nanjing's words, he probably misunderstood Luo Cheng before, it didn't prevent him from being unhappy with Luo Cheng in his heart. However, he couldn't persuade Fu Nanjing, so he ate the meal obediently. After dinner, Luo Cheng had something to do, so he left first.
Li Zhan called Fu Nanzeng.
Fu Nanjing was shocked. Could Li Zhan still doubt about Xia Huanhuan? Li Zhan didn't ask about it, but asked softly, "Third brother, there is something I want to ask your opinion on and see what to do." Fu Nanjing was stunned for a moment. "Whatever you have to say, just say it. What is our relationship? Do you need to be hesitant?" Li Zhan pondered for a moment, and then told Fu Nanjing about his relationship with Shen Wanxua. He absolutely trusted the Fu family and was not afraid that they would tell others. Fu Nanjing listened, but his expression became unusually serious.
"Do you want to help them?"
go back to the city? Fu Nanjing said it very obscurely. Li Zhan looked at Fu Nanjing, shook his head, smiled somewhat dejectedly, and said, "No. I also know that this is impossible.
But
They are now in different places. I just want. At least they can be together." Li Zhan was talking about Shen Wanxue and Rong Zhenbang, his biological parents. Fu Nanjing listened and breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Li Zhan was not so stupid that he did not impulsively say that he would step forward and help them return to the city. Otherwise, he might be so angry that he would beat him directly. If one punch did not wake him up, then 2 punches would be enough. Why did Shen Wanxue say that she was unwilling to recognize him publicly? Wasn't it because she was afraid of implicating Li Zhan and affecting his future? Even the Fu family, after all, was in the same city of Beijing, and they were not unaware of the Rong family's affairs. Although they did not have a deep friendship with the Rong family, they had once fought against the enemy on the battlefield, and Grandpa Fu had helped them secretly back then. But under such a grand environment, there was really too little that an individual could do. At most, Mr. Fu just helped to keep Shen Wanxue near Beijing City. Rong Zhenbang would not have allowed any more help at that time, for he was afraid that the Fu family would be implicated. Now, if Li Zhan is stupid enough to step forward and act like a filial son, he will simply harm a whole circle of people. Not only will his future be ruined, but even his wife and children, and even the Fu family who have always promoted and valued him, will suffer. Speaking of which, they are separated as a couple. It has been a few years since they were separated. If they file a report, it is actually reasonable and not excessive. It's just that. What's the matter with you showing up? You know, you and them on the surface have nothing to do with each other. If you do something so rashly, what if you are targeted by some people with ulterior motives? Li Zhan said softly. This is what I'm afraid of. I don't care about the future, but if I hurt Huan, the children, and the Fu family, I will never be at peace. But seeing that they never had another child because they felt guilty about me, and they suffered so much for so many years to find me, I really... Fu Nanjing patted Li Zhan's shoulder, and he sighed in his heart. Rong Zhenbang and Shen Wanxue were both from big families and received higher education. When the country was in danger, they resolutely joined the army. The scholar took up the wooden warehouse, and they were also full of passionate. Later in the 1950s, both of them took the initiative to retire from the military region and went to the university to become professors, engage in academic research, and teach and educate people. The Fu family had heard that they had not had children for many years, but not many people knew the reason. They thought it was simply because Shen Wanxue was in poor health, or that the couple had some hidden illness. In any case, even if there were no children in the eyes of outsiders, they were also like a couple of gods. It's a pity that somehow they still attracted jealousy. A few years ago, they were labeled and moved from the city to the countryside to work. Let me go back and ask my dad and the old man to see if there is any way. Li Zhan listened and hurriedly said, "Third brother, I'm not asking you this. No one knows what the consequences of this matter will be, and after all, there are many people watching the Fu family, so it's not appropriate to come forward. I thought that she was in our commune anyway. At that time, I would say that I saw that she was weak and sick, and I heard about her life story, so I wanted to ask. I was born in the countryside anyway, and things are in the hands of people. If it doesn't work, I won't insist on forcing it." Li Zhan became more and more anxious as he spoke. He really just wanted to find someone to discuss the feasibility of this matter, not to ask the Fu family for help in a roundabout way. So he simply said, "Third brother, what I told you today, just pretend you haven't heard it, okay? Don't tell the chief and the old man about my finding my biological parents. Otherwise, I won't dare to tell you everything and ask you to help make decisions in the future." Fu Nanjing saw that Li Zhan was getting anxious after he said that, so he had to sigh and said, "Okay. If you say so, I can't really tell my family. It's just, I still suggest that you don't be impulsive and wait until things are possible, then talk about it. After all, the army is not in the same line as other departments. If you get involved, others will definitely be suspicious. If someone uses it to make a fuss, it will be troublesome." Li Zhan nodded and said, I know the severity. I won't act rashly. This matter is considered to be over. Fu Nanjing could not help but ask, by the way, how are Huan and the little guys recently? Last time you were in a hurry and went back without reporting despite the punishment. My dad said that the little guys were kidnapped. Fortunately, everything was fine later. Were they not scared? Li Zhan still felt guilty when he talked about this, and said, everyone is fine. It's just that Huan always has nightmares at night and wakes up several times. When I returned to the team, she was better. It's just still worrying. The little guys are heartless, but it doesn't have much impact. I used to think that she should not be your biological mother. How could she exploit her own son like this? It turns out that she is not. It's just too vicious, right? My dad and grandpa were very worried about Huan and your kids when they heard about this. They asked me to mention it to you and see if we can bring their mother and others to Beijing to live for a while. Don't stay in the guest house this time. Just stay at the Fu family. The last time Xia Huan came to Beijing to visit her relatives, she just came to the Fu family for a meal, and the whole family didn't ask properly. Although they went to Qingshui village to inquire before, they all heard that Xia Huan was born to Lin Yuru and was the surviving twin.
But
Grandpa Fu and Fu Weixin were still reluctant to accept it in their hearts and wanted to find another opportunity to ask properly. Li Zhan smiled and heard, I can't make the decision on this. I'll ask her when the time comes. The two talked for a few more words before they dispersed. Fu Nanjing thought about it and decided to go find Luo Cheng again. The last time he ran into someone coming out of Luo Cheng's house, maybe it was really Xia Huan. Otherwise, Li Zhan wouldn't have come here for no reason, right? Although he used words to evade the issue today, he still had to find out how Li Zhan found out about Luo Cheng. Besides, how could Xia Huan be involved with Luo Cheng? Although Fu Nanjing didn't ask, he naturally knew that what his childhood friend had done might not be so innocent. With Luo Cheng's connections, it's not impossible for Xia Huan to come to Beijing without a letter of introduction. Luo Cheng is also investigating. Someone came to the door so easily. Although they didn't come for their business, it was still annoying enough. It seems that they have let down their guard too much recently. When Fu Nanjing went there, Luo Cheng had almost finished his investigation. He asked Dahe to ask his men if there was anything suspicious recently. After asking around, some people said that someone asked about buying jade on the black market some time ago, and the person who asked seemed to know that the person who sold the jade was from the countryside, so he asked directly about that person. Fu Nanjing heard the whole story from Luo Cheng, including the fact that Xia Huan asked Luo Cheng to find Li Zhan's elder sister, and he probably understood it and made up his mind. When he saw Li Zhan again, he smiled and asked, by the way, I forgot to ask you last time, that piece of jade. Have you seen it? Li Zhan couldn't help but narrow his eyes after hearing this. Which piece of jade? It's the piece of jade that Huan asked me to keep an eye out for. It's said that your second brother secretly took it to Beijing to sell. She was afraid that she would not be able to contact you in time, so she sent me a telegram to let me see if I could buy it. I asked Luo Cheng for help and bought it for him. After hearing this, Li Zhan's doubts that had remained in his heart were finally explained. Wu Xiao and Jifeng found out that the jade sold by Li Chong was obviously bought by Dahe, but in the end the jade ended up in Huan's hands. What happened? If the female comrade that Wu Xiao and Jifeng ran into that day was Huan, it would make sense. However, later Fu Nanjing said that he knew the girl, they just looked alike. So it didn't make sense. But now Fu Nanjing said that he helped buy the jade in the middle, which makes sense. It's just, I always feel that something is wrong. Why didn't Huan tell him the truth? Instead, she said that she secretly followed him to Jingshi to buy it? Was she afraid that he would be jealous of Fu Nanjing? However, Li Zhan did not show his doubts anymore and smiled. So that's the case. I really have to thank my third brother. Qingshui village. Xia Huan didn't know about the infernal affairs that the three men in Beijing were playing around her. Spring plowing had begun, and farm work was getting busier day by day. Although it was still enough to complete the basic work points, it was still very tiring to do farm work. In addition to farm work, there were many other things that needed to be done. This year's lotus pond was the same as last year. Xia Huanhuan was responsible for buying fish fry, and the lotus seeds were last year's lotus roots. She didn't have to spend any more money. When planting lotus roots, Xia Shuangshan, Li Jia, and several other male laborers in the village came over to help and released the fish fry. The rest was easy, and the fish and lotus roots were left to grow on their own. The ewe that the family had started raising last year had already been bred and had given birth to 2 lambs, so Xia Huanhuan was still raising them for the time being. After half a month or a month, they would be handed over to the commune, and the commune would collectively send a shepherd to raise them. The 2 lambs would be counted as work points, and the accountant would record them, and at the end of the year, they would distribute grain and meat. In this way, goat milk could finally be drunk. Every morning, they would go to squeeze the goat milk, boil it, and then give it to the kids at home and Lin Yuru. Lin Yuru was reluctant at first, but after Xia Huanhuan said a few words, she finally obeyed. When people get older, they are prone to calcium deficiency due to osteoporosis and other conditions. Dairy products can supplement calcium, and drinking them is definitely good for you. The lactation period of a dairy goat is 7 to 9 months, and it can produce more than 1 kilogram of milk every day, which is enough for the whole family. Even if it is not enough occasionally, there is enough goat milk in the space to supplement it. In addition, the hens raised last year have become old hens this year, and we can raise a few more this year. This time, we don't need to find someone to hatch the chicks. The old hens will sit on the nest by themselves. Xiaowen, Xiaowu, and Beibei took Yan Yan, Ye, and Yao Yao to the chicken coop every day to see the old hens sitting on the nest. When the chicks broke out of the shells, the 6 of them were so happy that they stayed up all night. The regulations stipulate that a family cannot raise more than 10 chickens. Lin Yuru was reluctant to raise old hens that could lay eggs, so she could only raise fewer new chicks, so she raised 4 more chicks. The other newly hatched chicks were also sent to the commune and exchanged for work points. By March, Beibei also began to go with a small school bag on his back. It's time to go to school. The 3 little kids Yan Yan, Ye, and Yao Yao cry and make a fuss every day to go to school with their brothers and sisters. Xia Huanhuan is helpless. Now, they cry and make a fuss to go to school, but don't cry and make a fuss about not going to school in the future. Humph. Things change, and she, as a mother, is waiting to see the show in the future. Lin Yuru and Xia Huanhuan had to take the 3 younger ones every morning, send the 3 older ones to the village entrance, and then bring the 3 younger ones back. After the triplets were taken away last time, Lin Yuru basically dared not let the triplets leave her sight. Xia Huanhuan was the same. Because of this, she hasn't gone to the county town or Beijing City through space for a long time, or to Luoqing for business. The purchasing manager was also helpless. They wanted to buy, but the seller had something to do and couldn't sell it for the time being. What could they do? Being scolded, they had to buy some on the black market, but the quality was not comparable to what they bought from Xia Huanhuan. But they could only sigh and wait for Xia Huanhuan to resume trading. Spring corn, sweet potatoes, cotton, peanuts, and other crops were gradually planted. In addition, Secretary Zhao secretly called all the reliable people in the 3 villages of the commune to hold a meeting on the matter of planting ginseng mentioned earlier. Everyone signed a document and raised money, which was considered a unanimous vote to do this. Therefore, within a few days, they went to the black market and found the person who pretended to sell ginseng seeds that Xia Huanhuan had asked Luoqing to help in advance, and bought the seeds back. This time, Xia Huanhuan specifically asked Luoqing to help, so Luoqing did not make any money from it. Otherwise, ginseng seeds are not cheap. Even if the village wants to plant, the cost of buying seeds alone can discourage most people. In any case, the seeds were successfully bought back, and everyone secretly went to the mountains to choose a place and planted all the ginseng. The rest is up to the land and time. The mountains here are suitable for ginseng growth. The ginseng seeds in Xia Huanhuan's space are all first class, so they all sprouted soon. The villagers were overjoyed. If the weather was too dry, they would go to the river to fetch water for watering. In short, they took good care of it, more attentively than tending to crops. After all, it was the first time for the village to grow ginseng. Xia Huanhuan planted it in the space, without any effort, so she actually had no experience. She thought about it and introduced Yang Qiushi to Secretary Zhao. Yang Qiushi was born in a family of traditional Chinese medicine. In addition to running large pharmacies across the country, his family was also a well-known medicinal material merchant in the past. Moreover, his family also had large tracts of land and forests to grow various medicinal materials. Yang Qiushi was influenced by his family since he was a child. He was an expert in everything from planting to harvesting, identification, processing, and even the final diagnosis, prescription, and medication. Secretary Zhao was not a pedantic, ignorant, or blind follower. He did not dare to be too blatant on the surface, but he still secretly asked Yang Qiushi for help. Of course, he would not ask for help for nothing. Secretary Zhao promised that he would at least give more work points and food to the people in the cowshed in the future. Yang Qiushi did not refuse and agreed. Seeing this, Xia Huanhuan was relieved and did not pay much attention to the matter of growing ginseng. Anyway, in 2 years at the shortest, 3 to 5 years at the longest, or even 6 years, ginseng can be harvested and sold. Ginseng on the black market is a life-saving medicine and is sold at a very high price. If you sell 1 or 2 plants, you can make more money than selling hundreds of kilograms of grain. She was still busy tending to her own small vegetable garden. This year, she planted similar varieties: tomatoes, cucumbers, lettuce, beans, green peppers, lettuce, etc. Anyway, vegetables and fruits are the most abundant in spring and summer, and children also need to supplement vitamins, so these must not be cut off. In addition, there are pickled cabbage, chili sauce, dried beans, pickled mustard greens, etc. to eat in winter. Every day was busy. Li Zhan sent a telegram back saying that the Fu family wanted her to take the children to Beijing to live for a while, but Xia Huanhuan refused on the grounds that the spring farming season was busy. Not to mention that she was not familiar with the Fu family after all. Even if she was familiar with them, she would not go with Fu Qingye in the Fu family. Lu Lan's incident of taking away the triplets has made her reflect on it, and she is still afraid. Fu Qingye is even more vicious than Lu Lan. Otherwise, before returning to the city the year before last, she would not have framed Shen Wanxue. She was crazy to run to the Fu family and put her children in danger. Li Zhan read his reply and didn't say much, and went back to Fu Nanjing. Li Zhan was still thinking of ways to transfer Rongzhenbang back to the rural area near Beijing. Even if he couldn't be with Shen Wanxue, he would go to the commune where Qingshui village was located. At least, life would be much better near Beijing. Li Zhan had a comrade in arms who was assigned to the department in charge of this after retiring from the army, so he asked secretly. Of course, he didn't tell the truth, but said that a relative in the village came to him and asked him to help ask. The comrade in arms replied that it was not impossible to do it, but he still advised him to be cautious and not to be too enthusiastic and to stand up for irrelevant people. Moreover, he had to submit the application himself so that they could handle it impartially. Li Zhan nodded, wrote a letter back, and asked Xia Huanhuan and Shen Wanxue to talk about it. However, before Xia Huanhuan received the letter, Shen Wanxue had already taken the initiative to submit the application. However, she did not apply to transfer Rongzhenbang back, but to apply to transfer to where Rongzhenbang was. After hearing this, Xia Huanhuan felt very upset and asked secretly, "Mom, why didn't you discuss it with us before making the decision?" Li Zhan just wrote to me, saying that he was thinking of a way to transfer Dad here to be with you. After hearing this, Shen Wanxue quickly grabbed Xia Huanhuan and said, "Huanhuan, this is what I'm afraid of. Write back to Li Zhan and tell him not to act impulsively and do anything stupid. His father and I are already very sorry for him. If he is harmed because of this thing again, then I will hate myself to death." But Xia Huanhuan couldn't bear it. Shen Wanxue in front of him was only 50 years old. Her hair has turned gray. Although she still exudes the ladylike temperament of the old days, she is still visibly old and haggard. It is really sad to let her go to the west where the wind and sand are raging and the conditions are difficult. It's nothing. Zhenbang has been there for several years. In fact, I have always wanted to apply to accompany him there, but I just couldn't let go of the thought of finding my son, so I kept delaying it. Now, my son has been found, and he is living a good life. He married such a good wife like you, and gave birth to 3 such lovely sons. As a mother, I am so relieved. With you by his side, I won't be afraid of him suffering. Although I also want the family to be happy together. But the situation does not allow it, so I have to do the next best thing. You and the children stay with him, and I will stay with Shenbang. I believe that one day, our family can always be reunited. Xia Huanhuan felt sad after hearing these words. But even if she has a portable space, this is the pain of a generation, and it is not something she can change personally, so she can only sigh.
Yeah.
This day will come, and it's definitely not far away. Just like the name you and your master gave to Yan Yan Ye Yao Yao, a spark can definitely turn into the most dazzling dawn. Xia Huanhuan said firmly. There are only 4 years left until that year. Although after that year, it may still take a few years of reaction time, but by then, the light can already be seen. Xia Huanhuan holding Shen Wanshue's hand, she smiled with tears in her eyes. However, we have to talk to Li Zhan about this matter. At that time, we will see if he can come home. If he is approved, he will leave soon. Before you leave, try to meet again. Shen Wanshue couldn't help wiping her tears and said with a smile, Alas, it would be great if we could meet in time. However, don't let him delay his work.
And?
Do you have any photos here? No, forget it. What if someone sees it? Xia Huanhuan said softly, I have it. When Li Zhan comes back, we'll take some more family photos. I'll think of a way to bring them to Mom later. It's a pity that we can't take photos together as a family right now.
Well.
When the time comes, there will be his dad. Let's take another photo together. Shen Wanshue said softly. The next day, Xia Huanhuan sent a telegram to Li Zhan. However, Li Zhan should be on a mission again, and there was no reply to this telegram. There was nothing we could do. Fortunately, Shen Wanshue's the application had to go through a process, and it couldn't be decided for a while. Xia Huanhuan could only use these days to improve her food, and prepare some clothing and bedding for her to keep out the cold in the northwest. Although the latitude is similar to this side, it is drier and colder, and food is scarce, so winter is not easy. The clothes to keep out the cold cannot be made too new, so I just used the few pieces Shen Wanshue has now. I brought it over and dismantled it, washed the fabric, and patched some torn areas with cloth. It still looks old. The cotton inside is just part of the original old cotton that has been lumped together, and some space has been added. I took out the new cotton and duck down and goose down and then sewed it up. It looked like it was still old on the outside because it was made of duck down or something like that, so it was not thick and would not arouse people's suspicion. How to do it? In addition, I also pulled some additional fabrics, which were also deliberately spliced together, and made a set of cotton padded clothes and trousers for Rongzhenbang, which was a filial gift for her daughter-in-law, whom she had never met. Xia Huanhuan also sewed roughly $100 or $200 into the lining of the quilt, asking Shen Wanshue to come there and use it if there was any emergency. Of course, she would still use it. I didn't tell Shen Wanshue because I was afraid that if she knew it now, she would refuse to take it, so I planned to tell them before leaving. I also made a pair of boots for each of them to wear in the winter. It's hard to buy anything else, otherwise it will be inconvenient when moving. Xia Huanhuan thought to herself, she would see how to send them things, but even if she could send them too much, it would definitely be conspicuous. It's more convenient to live in the same village. Lin Yuru can only take care of it now. The food at home is obviously richer than before. In the morning, it is thin-skinned soup dumplings. The method of making long steamed buns is rare in the north. In the north, they are all very big and solid buns with plenty of fillings and thin crust. One can be half full. When she first saw Xia Huanhuan making them, Lin Yuru was surprised for a long time. He smiled and said, Is this a dumpling? Is the skin so thin? Xia Huanhuan smiled and said, These are soup dumplings. The soup inside is drinkable, but be careful to burn your mouth when eating. The fillings are all meat fillings, with some seasonings such as green onions. Or fried spring rolls, freshly picked green peppers from the vegetable garden, lettuce, bean sprouts grown by yourself, etc., as well as finely shredded pork seasonings. Then wrap it in a thin spring roll wrapper and fry it twice. It takes a lot of work and oil, but it is so delicious. For lunch and dinner, there are fried noodles with various kinds of braised noodles, rice with braised pork and spring bamboo shoots, stir-fried bacon, steamed pork, stir-fried hare, stir-fried chicken with mushrooms, etc. In addition, there are all kinds of ingredients, stir-fried mushrooms, stir-fried vegetables, etc. From time to time, there is also cooked old hen fish maw soup, Crucian carp tofu soup, old duck soup, and the like were made in large quantities and served hot to Xinwanxue and Yangqiushi. When Xia Shuangshan was busy with spring plowing, the Li Zhan family also helped out in the fields. The meals are always sent to the courtyard, so there is no need to send them to Zhou Qiuhe and Li Jie from time to time. Lin Yuru couldn't help but said, Huan, haven't you been eating too well recently? Li Zhan's allowances don't dare to be created like this. There are 6 children in the family, and now they have to pay for school and teaching, and in the future, they will have to build a house and find a wife. It is impossible not to save money. If you spend so much money, people who know it will say that you have given your children nutrition. Those who don't know will say that you don't know how to live a good life, and you are a waste of money. If Li Zhan hears about it, he will also say that you are a waste of money. If you quarrel again, you will not okay. Xia Huan smiled and said, Mom, it's nothing. A meal is about 2 dishes and 1 soup. How many people are there in our family? Besides, Dad has to work in the fields every day and you and I also go there from time to time. It's all labor-intensive work. How can we do it if we don't eat to be full? Don't worry, Li Zhan knows that I eat like this. He was also afraid that his family was too frugal. Moreover, when we live behind closed doors, others will at most be suspicious of what we eat at home. When we go out and deny it, we just say that what we eat is just mediocre food, and that's it. Moreover, after this period of time, I will pay attention to it later. Lin Yuru was a little confused and asked, during this period? What does it mean? Xia Huan hasn't told Lin Yuru yet that Xinwanxue is Li Zhan's biological mother, but she still told her that Xinwanxue might be leaving in a while. Lin Yuru sighed after hearing this. After a long while, he said, So this is what happened? It's time to make more delicious food.
Sigh.
She is also pitiful. She was originally the eldest lady. How can she be like us and have been used to suffering since childhood? When I get old, I still have to suffer these crimes. My man is not around, and my son has lost one of his sons and has not found it back.
Sigh.
Lin Yuru stopped mentioning the extravagant life at home. She was almost done with the busy farming season. It was not until late April that Xia Huan resumed supplying supplies to the canteens of the 2 factories in the county. Luo Cheng also resumed occasional transactions. Zhan once told Xia Huan about his affairs so that she could have some idea, but he didn't tell her later. After all, he kept his investigation of Xia Huan's background secret, and if he told it, Xia Huan would be exposed. If he was so angry that he stopped doing business with him, where would he find sources of goods with good quality and reasonable prices? The business that Luo Cheng did with Xia Huan was mainly Chinese medicinal materials. As for Western medicine, Xia Huan also stocked it. There are not many, so she will only sell them if they are urgently needed and the price is high. There are also 2 types of cotton and wood. In addition, she has begun to sell some food supplies, although she has already figured out Xia Huan's details. But the source of these supplies is even more incredible. If Xia Huan is as well connected as him, it can be explained, but he comes from a rural family. Even if he is married to a soldier, how can he get so much? Fortunately, Luo Cheng is not a treacherous person. He is doing business in this industry, but he is actually somewhat rebellious. He feels that the direction of the entire country is wrong, and it shouldn't be like this. There should be other ways to go. That's right. There is nothing that can be done on the surface, so I just try to find out where Xia Huan's supplies came from in the dark. The 5th day of the 5th lunar month is the time to harvest wheat. The mission was over, and it was time to come back. The application submitted by Xinwanxue was accepted. However, the departure time would be postponed until July or August, and Li Zhan felt in his heart. It was boring. Although the final result was that Shen Wanxue and Rong Zhenbang were together, it was Shen Wanxue who went to the northwest to accompany Rong Zhenbang instead of transferring Rong Zhenbang back to the capital.
Come.
The biological parents who finally got to know each other are now getting further and further apart. After Xia Huanhuan sent him the telegram, he sent him another letter, which included a handwritten letter from Shen Wanxue. It meant that he should stop getting involved in this matter. Although she was going to the northwest, she was satisfied to be with her father. Li Zhan naturally knew that Shen Wanxue was afraid of affecting his future, so he mentioned it in the first place. Although he was frustrated, Li Zhan still didn't try to change the outcome of the matter. Xia Huanhuan still made rice dumplings filled with salted egg yolk and pork. In the evening, he called Shen Wanxue over, and everyone had a semi-reunion meal together. After the meal, Xia Huanhuan took the children back to the house to put them to sleep, so that Li Zhan and Shen Wanxue could talk about old times again. At midnight, Li Zhan came in and hugged Xia Huanhuan from behind. He didn't move for a long time. Xia Huanhuan turned over, hugged him back, put her face against his chest, and said softly, "I know you feel uncomfortable, but this is temporary and will pass soon." She was even a little impulsive and wanted to tell him that as long as he waits 4 or 5 years, everything will be fine and his parents will return to the city. But she opened her mouth and still didn't know where to start. Li Zhan kissed, he pulled down her hair and asked quietly, "Huanhuan, am I so incompetent that I can't even protect my biological parents?" Xia Huanhuan raised her head, looked at him very seriously, then came close to him, kissed his lips, and said softly, "I don't allow you to say that. Aren't you very protective of me and the cubs? Mom and Dad. It's the fault of this era, not your fault." Li Zhan looked at Xia Huanhuan, held her tightly in his arms, and called softly, "Huanhuan."
You are so kind.
The next day, Xia Huanhuan and Li Zhan took the children to the county town, took a family photo, and developed several photos of the triplets alone, of the triplets and Xiao Wen and Xiao Wu Beibei. Photos. Shen Wanxue asked for photos last time. Although she later said no, Xia Huanhuan still thought that it was hard to give photos of Li Zhan and her, but she was not afraid of photos of the little ones. The same thing happens every year, and I grow up slowly. Even if someone with ulterior motives uses the photo to find trouble, they may not be able to identify the person coming. He was also very busy with threshing. Some days, he even had to work until midnight to get home. The whole village couldn't help but gasp when they saw Li Zhan's work. "You said that you did twice as much work as the most capable farmer in the village. Do you think the women in the village would survive? He is extremely envious. Look at how hard they are fighting. Oh, on this hot day, I have to work hard to cut wheat, and I can do 20 work points a day. Compared with others, my man is a lazy man."
Well,
Those men, don't say that we despise them. There are men like Li Zhan here, so it's good for us to just despise them. I haven't kicked them out yet, I'm looking for a good one. Li Zhan's wife is so happy. Such a good man, who can make money, came back during the busy farming season, squatted at home like an uncle, and came to harvest wheat without saying a word to earn work points for his wife. Since he came back, his wife has never been to the fields once, right? In short, all the girls and wives in the whole village, and even the whole commune, are envious of her. The men are very unhappy. Is this comparable? What kind of food does Li Zhan's wife cook? To buy steamed buns, don't worry. What did they eat? Corn pancakes. But their woman also gave them big white steamed buns, but none of them got excited, and in the end, Lin Yuru was too embarrassed to say anything. He couldn't help but secretly said to Xia Huanhuan, "You also advise Li Zhan not to let him do too much. No matter how rough or strong a man is, he can't resist such a method. What if his body bones are injured? I will regret it in the future." Xia Huanhuan sighed and said, "Mom, I know. I'll try to persuade him again. After a while, I will go to the town to buy a hen and pig's feet and so on. I will make a hen and pig's feet soup in the evening to replenish him and his father." The water used for making soup and cooking is the spiritual spring water in the space, which can relieve some fatigue. In the soup, Xia Huanhuan also put a lot of tonics such as angelica, ginseng, jujube, and lotus seeds. When the soup is ready, and then pick out the residue of uncommon medicinal materials such as angelica and ginseng, and with Lingquan water and these rich diets, Li Zhan can still survive. However, Xia Huanhuan is also worried, so she stays with her. At midnight, after Li Zhan came back, he went to the bathroom to take a cold shower. After thinking about it, he blushed and went in anyway. At least it would give him a day's rest.
Okay.
It's rare for daughter-in-law to take the initiative, so Li Zhan naturally couldn't hold back. Not only was she uncontrolled, but she was also more wild and demanding than before, and Xia Huanhuan almost went crazy when she got kicked in the head. The one who provoked him. Now his voice was hoarse, and there was no one to save him. It finally came to an end. Xia Huanhuan endured the discomfort and went to the kitchen to fight hard. The meat sauce was made in advance, so the noodles were cooked. Just mix it up. After Li Zhan finished eating the noodles, he didn't waste any time, just picked up Xia Huanhuan and went to the house. The next morning, Li Zhan rarely got up without waking up again. Went to the fields to cut wheat. Lin Yuru was quite happy to see this. Fortunately, Li Zhan listened to her advice and took a day off. Xia Huanhuan was really tired and sick. Lin Yuru said that Li Zhan didn't work, but he did other things. However, Li Zhan's condition was much better. He probably felt that he went too far last night, so he looked at Xia Huanhuan with a guilty look on his face. Xia Huanhuan woke up, too embarrassed and angry to ignore him, and closed her eyes again. Daughter-in-law, I'm sorry. I was a little too out of control last night. I'll cook whatever you want. Xia Huanhuan couldn't help but burst into laughter. In this era, especially in the countryside, it is simply unimaginable for a man to cook. Li Zhan doesn't have any of the psychological baggage of a macho man. However, she still pushed him. Deliberately said angrily, "You still have the strength to go to work. Don't bother me." Although Li Zhan said it a bit rough and a bit straight, he still heard that it was his wife's irony. He chuckled and said, "I'll go there later. I'm going to cook first."
Xia Huanhuan smiled and said then,
"Let's make pancakes. The one you made once was quite delicious. Remember to bake more."
Li Zhan grinned and said, "Okay."
As he said that, he quickly got out of bed, put on his clothes, and went to the kitchen.
Xia Huanhuan was dumbfounded.
This man cut wheat until midnight yesterday and tormented her for half the night.
He is still so energetic now.
It's really. In the kitchen, Lin Yuru was really flattered and drove them away. "Li Zhan, how can this be done? You quickly go to the house to rest. Cooking is a woman's business. It's not your men's turn. If others find out, it will be a joke." Xia Huanhuan couldn't help but curl her lips after hearing this. However, it's normal for Lin Yuru to have such thoughts, and she can't be asked to change her mind just now. Li Zhan smiled and said, "Mom, it's okay. When we go on missions, we always cook together. Besides, I only do it once in a while. Huanhuan wants to eat it." After hearing this, Lin Yuru had no choice but to give up and said with a smile, "We, Wanner, are really lucky to marry you. I can't find such a good-natured uncle even with a lantern." Li Zhan smiled and said, "Mom, it's just me who is lucky. She gave birth to 3 sons for me in one breath and also took care of the house for me." Xia Huanhuan covered her quilt to stop listening to their business compliments and planned to sleep for a while. She was really tired from last night's work. It's a pity that several children the cubs didn't want to go to school anymore. The older ones were still in bed and didn't want to go to school. The younger ones were very energetic and woke up early and went to feed the chickens in the yard. Then they ran back and shouted, "Mom, the chicken is laying eggs. Go collect the eggs. Go collect the eggs. There is also 9 squeeze 9 for the sheep." Therefore, we could only collect 6 eggs in the morning, usually saving 3 for the commune. When the farming season was busy, Xia Huanhuan didn't let her keep them, and let Xia Shuangshan and Li Zhan cook them all. She and Lin Yuru had to work hard, and the little ones also needed to supplement their nutrition. 6 eggs a day was not enough. However, there was still room for supplementation, and goat milk was always on the table. Warm it up and put it into bowls. Li Zhan's scallion oil layer pancake is also cooked, and it's charred and fragrant. There are also millet porridge and sweet potato soup made by Lin Yuru, as well as hot steamed buns, stir-fried vegetables, stir-fried mushrooms and meat, and pickled vegetable dumplings. Xia Shuangshan also came over. The family had breakfast, and Li Zhan and Xia Shuangshan went to work on the ground. Xia Huanhuan wrapped up the rest of Li Zhanlao's cake and went to Shen Wanxue's place. However, Shen Wanxue had already gone to work, so she wandered into the fields. This year, because Yang Qiushi helped grow ginseng, the people in the village got closer to the people in the cowshed and the shed. People usually came over to chat with them and gossip, and the work assigned to them was not as tiring as before. It's hard to do. Xia Huanhuan gave the pancake to Shen Wanxue and laughed softly. This is made by Li Zhan himself. After hearing this, Shen Wanxue was startled at first, and then her eyes turned red. She hadn't even cooked a serious meal for her son, but she ended up doing the opposite. Xia Huanhuan came back, without staying long. Li Zhan stopped working like crazy today, and his mood returned to normal. Even so, Li Zhan's work points were recorded at 12 points in one day. Xia Huanhuan made another mutton soup in the afternoon, adding potatoes, carrots, mushrooms, and medicinal materials, and cooked it all afternoon. In the evening, it was mutton noodle soup, and each person's bowl was filled with a thick layer of mutton. This was also sent to Shen Wanxue and Yang Qiushi. In the evening, Xia Huanhuan said, "Anyway, I will know where they are in the future. Send them money and packages from time to time, and then find a chance to go and see them. There is always a way." Li Zhan nodded. It can only stay like this for now. Xia Huanhuan told Li Zhan about wanting to get a dog again. Li Zhan also agreed that the last time the 3 cubs were taken away was so terrible. It would be much better to have a dog at home, so he said, "I will also check in the army to see if there are any dogs that cannot meet the standards of military dogs. I will send one to my family when the time comes." Li Zhan's vacation was not long, and he returned to the team before the wheat harvest was completely over. Shen Wanxue didn't dare to come over specifically to see him off. She just stood at the end of the village and waited until Li Zhan was out of sight before she came back. Yang Qiushi and the others also knew that Shen Wanxue was leaving, and they felt empty in their hearts. Shen Wanxue was originally good-looking, and even though she was old, she still had the same temperament, and as a person, everyone liked her. In the remaining days, I tried my best to help her with her work, and everyone prepared something for her. Another 2 months passed, and in July, Shen Wanxue officially set off for the northwest. You need to go to the county first, then take a train to Beijing, and then take a train from Beijing for several days and nights to go west. Xia Huanhuan didn't dare to see her off openly that day. The night before departure, he asked her to come over secretly and have a practical meal. The triplets ran over and sweetly shouted "Grandma, Grandma," and Shen Wanxue felt sad and happy after hearing this. After dinner, another watermelon was killed, and everyone ate it. Xia Huanhuan then secretly told Shen Wanxue the data about money sewn into cotton-padded clothes and quilts. Shen Wanxue also knew that she was only telling him now because she was afraid that she would refuse, so she accepted it and said softly, "Huanhuan, I'll leave it to you to fight hard." Xia Huanhuan smiled softly and said, "Mom, don't worry. When we have the chance, we will come over to see you." The next day, Shen Wanxue left. Xia Huanhuan was afraid that the kids would yell when they saw Shen Wanxue, so she went to the village by herself. Far away, the ground was given away. July and August are the hottest days of summer. After the village received electricity, Xia Huanhuan thought about buying an electric fan. Buying an electric fan also requires a special ticket, and it is definitely impossible to sell it in the town. You have to go to the largest department store in the county to buy it. This year, the village has been electrified. After listening to Aunt Zhu's words, everyone wanted to buy one and plug it in to try it out. When I asked about the price, I couldn't bear to part with it. Nowadays, electric fans are manufactured in various places, such as the Hengsheng brand, which is produced in Hangzhou, and the Diamond brand, which is produced in Guangzhou, but the price is not cheap. It costs 50 yuan, which is ordinary in rural areas. It would take 2 years for the family to save so much money, so how could they be willing to buy it? Xia Huanhuan didn't worry about money, mainly because she didn't have tickets. However, when she was worried, she directly received 3 tickets for electric fans. One was naturally from Li Zhan, another was from Yan Haotian, and the remaining one was from Fu Nanjing. Xia Huanhuan could understand what Li Zhan and Yan Haotian sent. Why did Fu Nanjing send her a ticket for the electric fan? The Fu family wasn't familiar with her either. Xia Huanhuan kept the ticket for no use, thinking of returning the ticket when Li Zhan came back. Because of Fu Qingye, she kept a distance to some extent from the Fu family's overtures. Yan Haotian also remitted 80 yuan back, saying in the letter that he wanted them to buy an electric fan. Xia Huanhuan didn't hesitate, so she went directly to the county town and bought 2 units. One was placed in her house, and the other was placed in Lin Yuru's house. Isn't it a waste if you insist on buying 2 and put one in my house? I'm not afraid of the heat either, Xia Huanhuan said with a smile. Who said it was a waste? It's so hot in the summer, I don't believe you are not afraid of the heat. Besides, your son sent back 80 yuan and tickets for the electric fan. How about I buy them for you? When the time comes, my brother, when you come back, you will definitely scold me for being unfilial and thinking only about yourself. Besides, I estimate that the extra 30 yuan will be used to pay your electricity bill so that you will not worry about buying the electric fan, but also the electricity bill. Lin Yuru also laughed after hearing this. The electric fan was transported home on an ox cart, plugged in, turned on the maximum wind, and then whirred and spun on its own. It was much cooler than holding a cattail leaf fan by myself. Moreover, when I go to bed at night, I sometimes fall asleep while fanning myself with a fan. But if I don't fan, I immediately feel hot again, and I have to hold back my sleepiness and hum and fan myself a few more times. With this electric fan, you can run it all night long, which makes summer much easier. Lin Yuru couldn't help but sigh in her heart. She and Xia Shuangshan didn't know what kind of virtue they had accumulated in their previous lives. They were able to give birth to a son like Xiao Tian and pick up a daughter like Waner. They have always been sorry for this pair of children. They are approaching old age, but they have received all kinds of filial piety from them, and their lives are better than most people in the village. Apart from anything else, when the electric fan was moved into the house, several women of similar age in the village came to see it. They all looked at Lin Yuru with envy. While praising Xia Huanhuan and Yan Haotian for their filial piety, they scolded their own sons and daughters. Inconsiderate, and so on. Made Lin Yuru feel uncomfortable, and at the same time, she felt indescribably proud. After all, Xia Huanhuan was used to air conditioners, so naturally she wasn't that excited about electric fans. It can only be said that it is better than nothing. Of course, summer also has its share of summer fun. The big watermelons grown in the vegetable garden are growing well. I pick one and freeze it in the well in the yard. I fish it out during the hottest time of the day in the summer and cut it into pieces for the whole family to eat together. You can also pick lotus roots and lotus seeds in the lotus pond, so you still dig the lotus roots to make cold lotus root slices, which is also a common dish on the table in summer. In addition to lotus root, there are also cold cucumbers and cold tomatoes. In addition to placing fish fry in the lotus pond this year, Xia Huanhuan also placed shrimp fry and crab fry. Have to wait until autumn, September, or October, and you can eat while drinking rice wine. The shrimps are almost grown in summer, so Xiao Wen and Xiao Wu, who are on summer vacation, follow Xia Shuangshan into the water to catch them with a fine net. The 2 cubs had already learned to swim, and with Xia Shuangshan watching over them, they were not afraid of danger, so Xia Huanhuan felt free to let them play in the water and do some work. The shrimps that were fished out were completely transparent, quite large, and extremely fresh. While the shrimps are still alive, quickly put them into the wine and soak them. This is the drunken shrimps. Of course, drunken shrimps are for adults. Xia Wen, Xiao Wu, Beibei, and others can only let them eat one to have a taste. The triplets cannot be fed, even if they cry. In addition to drunken shrimp, you can also pound the shrimp meat into shrimp paste, then make steamed eggs, mix with egg starch, etc. to make shrimp. Or just make boiled shrimp directly. Everyone likes to eat light food in summer, so boiled shrimp is the most suitable time. Xia Huanhuan often makes cold skin. Add flour and water to form a dough, and then wash it over and over again in water until the water becomes clear, which is considered to be done. After washing the remaining dough, steam it in a pot, and then cut it into pieces, which is the honeycomb-shaped gluten. As for the washed water, let it sit for a few hours. After the white color precipitates, pour away the excess water. Use a flat-bottomed iron plate to pour a little pasta water into the remaining white batter water, and then place the container in boiling water. Boil it for a while. Wait for the dough water to solidify into a thin, transparent, milky white dough. Take it out. Brush the dough with oil. Put it on the side, and repeat the same action again. In a short time, you will have a stack of transparent dough. Like dough.
This is liangpi.
Cut a handful of shredded cucumbers, season with garlic juice, sesame oil, chili oil, fried peanuts, salt, sugar, light soy sauce, vinegar, etc., and you'll have a delicious and cool cold skin. If you like it mixed with sesame sauce, add some sesame sauce to it. The little ones at home are clamoring for food every few days. In addition to cold noodles, there are also mung bean soup, lotus seed 8 treasure porridge, and the like, which are all summer foods to cool down. There is also yellow eel, which can be made into braised yellow eel and eel noodles. In addition, there are various fruits. The big peach tree in the yard of Luo's house in the county town is still full of fruits this year. Xia Huanhuan picked a lot of them and sent some to the families of her friends in the village. She also sent some to Grandma Luo through the space. There are also plums. This year, she used the green plums picked from the mountains to soak with rock sugar and then mix them with boiled water to drink. It is a very healthy dessert drink. In addition, plum wine was brewed for Xia Shuangshan. Although it is hot, after all, you can't lose your mouth when eating, so it's not that sad. In early August, Secretary Zhao notified everyone that the county called on all communes to pay close attention to the education of children, and the communes decided to set up rural primary schools on their own. This will also make it convenient for children in the commune to go to school, and they don't have to get up early and go to school in the town every day. Moreover, although many educated youth from the commune have returned to the city in recent years, there are also new arrivals every year. Some of them have married men and women in the village and have started families and cannot return to the city. Some simply have no connections and have never been able to return to the city. There are also quite a few who have been asked to work in the fields. It is indeed a bit unfair to the education they have received and the knowledge they have learned. Setting up a school and letting them be teachers to teach the children in the village to read and write can be regarded as making the best use of their talents. Moreover, now the children in the village have to pay 4 yuan in tuition every semester to go to school in the town, which is not a small amount. After the village school is established, at least the tuition can be reduced by half to 2 yuan, which also reduces a lot of burdens, and more children can afford to go to school. The educated youth in the educated youth points are of course happy. Being a teacher can also earn work points, and at least they don't have to work hard in the fields. Who doesn't want to do it? The school was finally built in 2 empty houses in Qingshui village. The desks and lecture tables were built with brick legs by the village masons, and the tops were made of wooden boards. The children brought their own seats from home. They could move them back home after school or just put them in the classroom. The village also organized a selection of teachers, which was also very lively. Aunt Zhu's son Zhu Xiaopeng went to Beijing to study at a university for a year and graduated with excellent grades. In the summer, he got his diploma and was assigned to the agricultural station in Qingshui village. Although he still had a rural household registration, the agricultural station was responsible for arranging a job for him. He worked in the commune to help Secretary Zhao. As a grassroots cadre, he was considered to be half a farmer. I heard that it was Zhu Xiaopeng who suggested building a primary school in the village. The decision of the commune was also praised by the county, and 200 yuan was allocated to them to buy textbooks, chalk, and other necessary things. The extra money was given to the teachers as wages. It was impossible to have extra money. With this little money, we couldn't even buy desks and chairs, or we couldn't bring the children from home. However, despite the many difficulties, everyone happily set up the school. Secretary Zhao was appointed as the principal, another commune cadre was appointed as the vice principal, and Zhu Xiaopeng was appointed as the director of teaching, focusing on teaching and managing teachers. Of course, he also taught mathematics. Other Chinese, geography, physical education, music teachers were also decided. Unfortunately, there was no foreign language teacher. There were some funny things about building the school. Secretary Zhao and Zhu Xiaoping were responsible for selecting educated youth to be teachers. Xia Fangfang didn't know where she got the courage from, but she actually came and clamored to participate in the assessment. Xia Fangfang relied on Li Tsuehua and her father's ability to bully people and impersonated Xia Huanhuan to go to college in Beijing. Later, she was expelled from school for cheating. The whole village laughed at her for more than a year. No one thought she could be so shameless and come to be a teacher. However, Secretary Zhao was not a harsh person, so he gave Xia Fangfang a chance. No one knew that Xia Fangfang's real intention was not only to drink, but she also had a crush on Zhu Xiaoping and wanted to date him. Originally, Xia Fangfang was very picky. Later, she went to college and had a boyfriend in Beijing. She looked down on all the countrymen in the village. After being expelled, she returned to the village in disgrace. Some people in the village also spread the rumor that she had already given her body to the boyfriend in Beijing, so her reputation was ruined. In addition, her father and grandmother were arrested and sent to labor reform, so Lu Hongmei and her brother Xia Chengkai were so anxious that they wanted to find a husband for her and marry her off. But after a year of talking, no young man of similar age was willing to marry her. There were a few bachelors in their 30s who were interested, but Xia Fangfang was blindly confident and looked down on them. She had been choosing for more than a year, and her mother and brother did not hesitate to control her. Seeing her eating nothing at home, her brother and sister-in-law also made indirect complaints every day. This year, they even told her to work in the fields to earn food, and if she didn't earn enough, she wouldn't have to eat. Xia Fangfang had no choice but to go to the fields to work this year. She suffered the most since she was born, and she cried and raged. Unfortunately, there were no people like Xia Shuangshan, Lin Yuru, and Xia Huanhuan in the family who could be bullied and controlled by her. It was almost time to harvest the autumn and winter crops, and Xia Fangfang was also anxious. She was 2 years older than Xia Huanhuan and was already 25 years old this year. In the countryside of that era, she would have been an old maid who couldn't get married. But she was still unwilling to accept it. Although she was expelled, she was a college student after all. How could she be a farmer again? Therefore, she thought about coming here to be a teacher, but when she saw Zhu Xiaoping wearing a white shirt, he stood out among the gray villagers and educated youth, and was a handsome man. She was moved. Although Zhu Xiaoping still had a rural household registration, he was a cadre of the commune at such a young age, so he was worthy of her. Zhu Xiaoping and Secretary Zhao worked out the test papers for the teachers, and he also gave one to Xia Fangfang, asking her to take the test together. If her performance was really outstanding, Secretary Zhao was willing to let bygones be bygones and give her another chance. However, Xia Fangfang's heart was entirely on Zhu Xiaoping, and she didn't do the test paper seriously. The key point was that she was busy dating and cheating in college, and she couldn't do it seriously, so she flirted with Zhu Xiaoping. Zhu Xiaoping was so embarrassed that he found an excuse and left. Seeing this, Xia Fangfang thought that Zhu Xiaoping had accepted her secret glances, so without saying a word, she handed in the test paper and chased after him. She had a good plan in her mind. Zhu Xiaoping was the school's dean of teaching. As long as she could take Zhu Xiaoping down if she married him, it wouldn't matter how she did in the exam. Her husband was the school leader. She could become a teacher if she wanted. Zhu Xiaoping saw that he had escaped, but Xia Fangfang chased him shamelessly, shouting Brother Xiaoping, while chasing him. Her face turned black. Xia Fangfang kept shouting from behind, and Zhu Xiaoping almost ran away. Later, there were too many people watching him. Zhu Xiaoping had no choice but to stop and ask politely, "Have you finished the test paper?" Xia Fangfang thought that she cared about her, so she smiled and said, "I have finished it." "Brother Xiaoping, I called you for a long time. Why didn't you respond?" "It's so embarrassing." Zhu Xiaoping almost vomited. However, he was well-mannered and resisted the discomfort and said, "Go home after you hand in the test paper." The results will be announced tomorrow. After that, he walked back without looking back. Seeing this, Xia Fangfang hurried over again. Brother Xiaoping, why don't you pay attention to me? I handed in my paper early just to talk to you for a while. Zhu Xiaoping listened and walked faster, and entered the classroom where the teacher was testing. When Xia Fangfang wanted to go in again, she was blocked by two young men who came to the door as volunteers to guard the door. Hey, you have handed in your paper. You can't go in. Xia Fangfang was annoyed, but she was confident that Zhu Xiaoping was just shy, so she had to go back. As a result, the results were announced the next day, and Xia Fangfang, who had only scored in the single digits and even wrote her own name wrong, was naturally not on the list. Xia Fangfang was so angry that she went to Zhu Xiaoping's house to argue, and she was delusional that Zhu Xiaoping had abandoned her and played with her feelings. It's a pity that Zhu Xiaoping doesn't know how to quarrel, but he has a mother who is as good at talking as Aunt Wu, Aunt Zhu. Aunt Zhu put her hands on her hips and scolded Xia Fangfang. Xia Fangfang, are you okay? Why don't you count on your fingers to see how old you are? Oh, right, you can't even count on your fingers. I heard from the villagers that you only got 8 points in arithmetic in the exam yesterday. You're not even as good as the children in the village who go to elementary school. Let me help you calculate. You are 25 this year. Look at Huan Huan, who is 23 years old and has given birth to 3 sons for her man. You are 25 and still not married. My Xiaoping is only 24. Besides, why don't you have any man who wants you? Don't you have any idea? If you had studied harder and behaved better at Jingshi University, you wouldn't have got the bad reputation you have now. What's the matter now? Just because my Xiaoping has returned from college, you want to harm my Xiaoping? Hurry up and take a look at yourself. Are you worthy of it? I tell you, you want to date my Xiaoping or even marry my Xiaoping. Don't say that my Xiaoping looks down on you. It's me. As long as I live, you should stop dreaming about this. Get out of here. If you bark at my door again, I'll splash you with my foot-washing water. After this speech, Xia Fangfang, who was not very shameless in scolding, also blushed and ran back home in anger. On the way back, Xia Fangfang saw Zhu Xiaoping talking to Xia Huanhuan with a smile on his face. Xia Huanhuan, you are so shameless. I'll tear your mouth apart. Xia Huanhuan turned around and saw Xia Fangfang and couldn't help but be stunned. Didn't she just run into Zhu Xiaoping, then asked a few questions about the school preparations and asked the teachers in the school to help take care of the kids at home? Did Xia Fangfang become a mad dog after being expelled, biting everyone she saw? However, Xia Fangfang had already rushed over, and she didn't have time to think about it. Zhu Xiaoping shouted subconsciously, "Be careful." As he said that, he was about to block Xia Huanhuan without thinking. However, Xia Huanhuan did not need him to block her, as she dodged first and then tripped. Xia Fangfang was in a hurry to begin with, so she fell flat on her face. Unfortunately, Xia Fangfang did not know when to stop. Xia Fangfang felt superior to Xia Huanhuan since she was a child. Her family always spoiled her. She was given all the delicious food, drinks, and clothes first, and only those that she did not want or were left over would be Xia Huanhuan's turn. Even to go to college, if she wanted, her family would let her impersonate her. However, now, she was expelled from the university, and her loving grandmother and father were arrested and sent to labor reform. She is already 25 years old, but she is not married yet. She finally fell in love with Zhu Xiaoping, but he still rejected her. She was just humiliated by Zhu Xiaoping's mother. In contrast, Xia Huanhuan was obviously sold by her family to a man who was physically injured and unable to do things. In fact, she was married to serve her mother-in-law and sisters-in-law. She should have lived a life of being beaten and scolded like a cow and a horse. But she happened to meet a good man who not only had no physical problems, but also protected his wife in everything. He even gave most of the dozens of yuan allowance to Xia Huanhuan just after they got married. Xia Huanhuan was also lucky enough to give birth to triplets, all of them sons. How come Xia Huanhuan encountered all these good things?
Why?
She should have been the one who was the star and the moon, and should have lived a good life. How come she was inferior to Xia Huanhuan in every way? Xia Fangfang was unwilling to accept it. She got up again and rushed towards Xia Huanhuan. Xia Huanhuan, if you have the guts, don't hide behind Brother Xiaopeng. I will tear your face off today. Let you go out and show off. Xia Huanhuan sneered angrily. The original owner had been bullied in the Xia family for so many years, and even her place in college was taken away by someone else. She just secretly reported Xia Fangfang, which indirectly led to her being expelled from school, and she hasn't really taken revenge yet. Now, Xia Fangfang is actually the first to complain and cause trouble for her? Very good. Let's settle the new and old grudges today. Xia Huanhuan dodged swiftly, and then raised her foot again. This time, she kicked Xia Fangfang's knee directly. Xia Fangfang immediately knelt down in embarrassment. Ah. Xia Huanhuan sneered. Xia Fangfang, you don't have to be so polite to me. Because even if you kneel down to apologize, I won't accept it. As she said that, she had already grabbed Xia Fangfang's hair, raised her hand, and slapped her cleanly. With a thud, a slap came down. This slap is to teach you a lesson for your nonsense, which ruins my reputation all the time. If you dare to let me hear you scold me next time, I will slap you for every word. If you don't believe me, we'll just wait and see. Then there was another pop
sound.
This slap is to teach you a lesson for replacing my place in college.
Pop.
This slap is for the years you bullied me in the Xia family. However, one slap is definitely not enough. You can continue to act like a demon, and I will beat you back one by one in the future.
Pop.
This slap. I just did it for the right reason. I'm too lazy to think of a reason. Xia Huanhuan slapped Xia Fangfang 4 times, and her face was already bruised like a pig's head. It was the first time in her life that she saw Xia Huanhuan, who was always taciturn, submissive, and easy to be bullied, look so cold and scary. She stared at Xia Huanhuan with horror in her eyes. Xia Huanhuan threw away Xia Fangfang's hair, looked down at her, and smiled coldly. Xia Fangfang, don't act like a demon. Don't mess with me. Otherwise, I still have a lot of accounts with you. I don't mind if we settle them bit by bit. Xia Fangfang was stunned by the beating, staring at Xia Huanhuan in horror.
Xia Huanhuan.
Why is she so scary? Obviously, before, when she secretly twisted her, she didn't dare to shout, let alone resist. But the burning pain on her face and the buzzing in her head were not fake. She was really beaten up. Many people in the village also gathered around, but no one thought that Xia Huanhuan was wrong. After all, the qualification to go to the Workers', Peasants' and Soldiers' University is such a precious thing, and it was replaced by Xia Huanhuan. No one cared. Xia Fangfang even climbed up to tear her mouth and dig her face. How could she stand there and let her beat and scold her? A few slaps in the face were not enough. If it were them, they would be sorry if they didn't take this opportunity to take revenge. Therefore, although Xia Fangfang was beaten into a pig's head, no one came forward to comfort her. In the end, it was her mother Lu Hongmei and brother Xia Chuanhua who dragged her back home with a gloomy face and didn't let her go out to embarrass herself. Zhu Xiaopeng ignored Xia Fangfang, but asked Xia Huanhuan with concern, "Huanhuan, are you okay?" "I'm sorry. Your cousin has been pestering me these 2 days, and I didn't expect such a thing to happen." Xia Huanhuan listened and said, "I'm fine. I just couldn't hold back my anger for a while and my hand hurts. Besides, my father has severed the relationship with the Xia family, and Xia Fangfang is not my cousin anymore. I can't ask you for anything else, but I'll have to trouble you with my 3 little guys in the future." Zhu Xiaopeng naturally agreed after hearing this. "Don't worry. The students taught in our commune's primary school will definitely go to junior high school and high school in the future, and if they have a chance, they will go to college." After saying a few words, Xia Huanhuan went home. Zhu Xiaopeng was looking at Xia Huanhuan's back a little absent-minded. In the past, before Xia Huanhuan got married, he actually liked Xia Huanhuan a little secretly in his heart, and even asked the matchmaker to secretly inquire about it, wanting to propose marriage, but Li Tsuehua asked for a betrothal gift of 30 yuan, and the matter was never mentioned in the open. Now, Xia Huanhuan has married and had children, and no matter how much he has in mind, he can only bury it deeply in his heart, and it has become a lifelong regret. Zhu Xiaoping stood for a while, and then walked towards the classroom a little lonely. The newly selected teachers had gathered. Everyone had to hold a meeting, and they were also busy with setting the class schedule, determining the teaching content, etc. They were all busy, and they couldn't afford to be sentimental. Xia Huanhuan didn't know what Zhu Xiaoping was thinking. She didn't have the energy to pay attention to other people's affairs. The letter that Shen Wanxue sent to her 2 days ago said that she had safely reunited with Rong Jinbang. They were working in a grassland at the foot of a mountain, herding sheep and cattle, and shearing wool every day. The work was not too tiring, and the food was okay. The crops here were not good, so they only ate highland barley noodles and milk tea, and there were not many vegetables. As for meat, after all, there were cattle and sheep all over the mountains, so they could still eat it from time to time. I just came here, and I was a little uncomfortable at first, but after living here for 10 days or half a month, I was fine. It's just that the weather gets cold quickly here. It was only August, and it had already snowed. The letter was addressed to Yang Qiushi, so Yang Qiushi secretly took it and showed it to Xia Huanhuan, and the original letter was left to Xia Huanhuan. Xia Huanhuan then wrote another letter to Li Zhan, briefly telling him about their situation. However, she kept the letter with her, and would show it to Li Zhan when he came back. Another happy thing was from Zhou Qiuhe. Zhou Qiuhe had been working part-time as a salesperson in the town supply and marketing cooperative for more than 2 years. Director Zheng had reported to the higher authorities a few days ago, intending to make Zhou Qiuhe a regular employee of the supply and marketing cooperative. Sure, this matter, to be honest, was also secretly assisted by Xia Huanhuan. It was in July and August when she was holding the ticket for the electric fan and was going to the county town to buy it. She happened to come to the town and went to the supply and marketing cooperative. Zhou Qiuhe was not there. When she saw Director Zheng, she smiled and joked. "Sister Zheng, when you asked me to be a salesperson before, didn't you say that if I did a good job, I would be promoted to a regular employee? My third sister-in-law has been working here for more than 2 years. Why didn't you believe it?" Director Zheng couldn't help but glanced at her unhappily after hearing this. "You still say that? Back then, you treated me with such kindness that you didn't agree to it, and you also tried to introduce your sister-in-law to me, as if there was no one to do my job." Xia Huanhuan couldn't help laughing after hearing this. "Sister, my third sister-in-law can do abacus, keep accounts, and know how to read. She is not worse than me, right? You can't use me as a shield like this." Director Zheng smiled and said, "Look at you. I was just joking, right? You really took it seriously? I've been thinking about the formal employment. I've submitted a report, but the higher-ups also want to evaluate the town's supply and marketing cooperative to see if it needs a formal employee, so it's been delayed." Xia Huanhuan smiled and said, "Well, Sister Zheng, I was planning to take the ticket for the electric fan to the county town to buy the electric fan. See if you can get the goods. If you can, I'll buy it directly from you. It's easier for you and me, and it can also be counted as a profit for you. By then, the higher-ups in the supply and marketing cooperative will see that the town supply and marketing cooperative is selling so well, and maybe it will be easier to approve the formal employment, don't you think?" Director Zheng couldn't help laughing and said, "You've got a good idea. We're a state-owned company. How can we pay more attention to you, just because you sell a lot of things? But I know what you mean. Qiuhe just gave birth to her 4th child at the end of last year. Although she doesn't have to give work points to your fake mother-in-law Lu Lan, she's still living a tight life. It must be good to have a stable job. She has worked with me in the store for 2 years, and I must think of her well." Xia Huanhuan didn't say anything after hearing this, but she still bought 2 electric fans and many other things from the supply and marketing cooperative. After waiting for almost a month, there was finally a result. The higher-ups also investigated and found that in the past 2 years, only the supply and marketing cooperative in this town had the clearest accounts, and everything was consistent. After asking, it was Zhou Qiuhe who did it, so they agreed. Zhou Qiuhe went from a part-time temporary worker to a formal employee, and she no longer had to follow the salary model of work points plus 1 yuan per month. Instead, she no longer converted work points and changed to direct salary. 18 yuan a month is not much compared to the 20 or 30 yuan a month for workers in the county. But for those who work in the fields all year round, it is already a big number. Zhou Qiuhe and Li Jie were very happy. Li Jie didn't let Zhou Qiuhe work in the fields anymore, and he took care of it all by himself. As for Dong Bao and the younger ones, Zhou Qiuhe didn't always bring them to the supply and marketing cooperative to effect their work. Most of the time, Li Jie took care of them so that Zhou Qiuhe could work without distractions. After all, the grain that Li Jie earned from work points in the fields was not comparable to Zhou Qiuhe's 18 yuan a month. Li Jie's family was visibly better off. Seeing this, Xia Huanhuan was happy for them. In a few years, there were opportunities everywhere in the city. Although the countryside later had a land contract responsibility system, and farmers could have enough food, the change was a world of difference compared to the rapid development of the city. Such a dramatic reality could not be changed by her alone. Therefore, she could only try her best to help those close to her, so that they would have the opportunity to get on the first express train to get rich in the future. Although Zhou Qiuhe still had a rural household registration, after all, with his own ability, he has become a formal salesperson employed by the department store. Although he is still working in the town supply and marketing cooperative, he will find an opportunity to be transferred to the county town later and then slowly change to a commercial grain household registration. As for Li Jie, in this era, men are still the mainstream of working outside and women are the homemakers. The fact that Zhou Qiuhe earns more work points than Li Jie now is fine in the short term, but over time, people in the village and outside the village will definitely gossip and make unpleasant remarks. Although Li Jie's character is impeccable, it is hard to guarantee that he will not get upset after a long time and finally cause discord between the couple, so it is better not to earn more money. Xia Huanhuan was thinking about how to help Li Jie get a job in the county. A job in the city. However, this also needs to be done slowly. Jobs in the city are all for each person, and sometimes many parents retire early so that their children can take over and have jobs. It is not easy to find a job in the county town. The autumn harvest and winter planting are also going on busily. At the end of September and the beginning of October, lotus roots and fish are harvested, and the strong laborers in the village are asked to come to help. In addition, a lot of fat are also harvested. The villagers think that the shells of these things are hard, and they don't know how to cook them, so they refuse to take them. Xia Huanhuan collected them all in a basket and tied them up with ropes to prevent them from crawling around. Then it was as some of them were soaked in wine to make drunken, and the others were steamed or fried with rice cakes. Autumn is the season when produce crab roe. She also took out the crab roe and made crab roe dumplings and crab meat dumplings, which are the favorites of the little ones. It happened to be the triplets' 2-year-old birthday. This year, there was a crab feast, plum wine soaked in the summer, osmanthus cake made with osmanthus sugar in the fall, and other dishes, braised pork, wild chicken, mushroom soup, and so on. It was a pity that Li Zhan was not at home, and Shen Wanxue was not at home either. So Yang Qiushi and Xia Shuangshan were called over. Yang Qiushi took advantage of the little one's birthday to solemnly propose that he wanted to recognize the 3 little guys as his grandsons. Xia Huanhuan had no objection, but she still had to tell Li Zhan about this matter, and it could only be officially recognized after he agreed. So, let's put it aside for the time being. After the autumn harvest and winter planting, the grain will be distributed according to work points. This year's commune's income is about the same as last year. The villagers handed in all the chickens, ducks, pigs, sheep, etc. raised at home in exchange for work points. They also handed in 7 or 8 big fat pigs, a dozen sheep, dozens of chickens and ducks, and hundreds of eggs and duck eggs. They were all sent to the grain station to sell for money, and then they were brought back and distributed to each household according to work points. Of course, 2 pigs were kept for the new year, and a few sheep were kept to breed lambs next year. As for chickens and ducks, they were kept according to the wishes of each family. If they wanted to keep them and continue to raise them, they would continue to raise them, as long as the total number did not exceed the limit. But if you want to kill the old hens to make soup or eat them, you have to deduct the corresponding work points, and it will be considered that the commune sold them to individuals. Xia Huanhuan directly exchanged her work points for 3 old hens, planning to kill them and eat them during the new year. In addition to money and poultry and livestock, there was food. The coarse grains of sweet potatoes and corn and the fine grains of wheat and millet were also divided according to work points. This year, there were a lot of lotus roots and fish in the lotus pond, which were all counted as Xia Huanhuan's work points. In addition, Li Zhan worked hard during the wheat harvest, so he actually had a lot of work points, and he was also given more than 200 kilograms of food, which he pushed back home in a cart. The New Year pig had to be slaughtered until the end of the year, otherwise the meat would go bad before the New Year. Everyone could only be patient and wait for the day to slaughter the pig. Soon the first snow of the year fell, and November passed, and December entered. After Laba, everyone began to get busy collecting debts and the like. Xia Huanhuan's family did not owe any debts, but there were a few good people who had borrowed money and came to pay back the money. On this day, there was another heavy snow the night before, and Xia Huanhuan burned the coal stove vigorously, planning to stay in the house during the day while warming the fire and making close-fitting vests for the children with animal skins. The three little guys, who are over 2 years old, are at an age where everyone hates them. They don't feel cold at all. They get up early in the morning and run to the yard to build snowmen and other things. Xia Huanhuan had no choice but to get up from the bed and go out to see that the snow was really heavy, and it buried the calves of adults. The three little guys' faces were red from the cold, but they happily ran around in the snow with swollen and shaky steps, and occasionally fell down on purpose, rolling on the snow and so on. Xiaowen is also 8 years old this year. He has been well-nourished in the past 2 years and has grown a lot, but he is still very childish, so he also took Xiao Beibei and the triplets to play crazy in the yard. Xia Huanhuan was speechless. In this sub-zero weather, they didn't feel cold. However, she still rolled up her sleeves to help them build a snowman and stuck a carrot on it as a red nose. Just after they finished building the bricks, Xia Huanhuan was shivering with cold and wanted to go back to the house to let them play by themselves, but she heard a knock on the door. Xia Huanhuan looked towards the door and saw 2 men and women in ragged cotton jackets standing at the door. When they saw Xia Huanhuan, they whispered, "Is this Lin Yuru's home? Lin Yuru and Xia Shuangshan's home?" Xia Huanhuan was stunned for a moment.
Who are these 2 people?
When Lin Yuru heard her name being called, she also came out to check. At first glance, she didn't recognize them either, so she asked, "Who are you?" When the 2 men saw Lin Yuru, they asked tentatively, "You are Lin Yuru, right?" Lin Yuru didn't know why she had a bad premonition in her heart, and she didn't answer, just looked at them. "Who are you first?" The 2 looked at each other, and then the man said, "I am the uncle of the girl you supported back then, and this is her. Her second aunt, named Li Ernie." When Lin Yuru heard the name, her body swayed, and she almost fell down.
Li Ernie.
She remembered this name. Last year, Xia Shuangshan secretly went to other counties to inquire, and it seemed that Li Ernie was the biological mother of the girl they picked up, and her biological father was called Lu Yuliang. That is, how come she became the second aunt now? In any case, these 2 people are probably Xia Huanhuan's biological parents or relatives of her biological parents. How did they find their way to the house? It turned out that the person who came was Li Ernie, and the man was not Lu Yuliang, but Li Ernie's younger brother Li Sankai. Originally, Lu Yuliang and Li Ernie planned to come here during the slack season last winter, but something went wrong. Lu Yuliang was a gambler. After the busy farming season, thinking that he would be able to make a lot of money soon, he couldn't help but get together with a few second-rate guys in the village to play cards and gamble. As a result, he lost a lot. He suspected that the other people had colluded to cheat him, so he had an argument with them, and then they started fighting. It was probably because 3 people were beating him up, and Lu Yuliang got angry and picked up a carrying pole to beat them, and ended up hitting one of them on the head. That person fainted immediately, and although he was rescued later, his brain was damaged, and he became a fool. The commune called the police, and Lu Yuliang was arrested and sentenced to several years of labor reform. Li Ernie was a rural woman who had only been out of the commune and town a few times. Now her husband was arrested. She was so frightened that she was at a loss of her wits. How could she possibly run out alone to find Xia Huanhuan and then take her to Beijing to find the Fu family to recognize her as her relative, so as to earn some money as a thank you? Therefore, this matter was delayed. Until this year, Li Ernie accidentally let this matter slip in front of her younger brother. After hearing this, Li Sankai became greedy and wanted to get a piece of the pie. Xia Shuangshan had been to the village, so it was easy to find out Xia Shuangshan's address. Even if you can only find out a rough idea, Widow Wang had come here to ask before, and the two of them would know it after a pair. The problem is where the address of the biological parents of the girl in Beijing is. If they don't know this, they will not get any benefit if they find the girl back then. Li Sankai asked Li Ernie to see Lu Yuliang to find out where your family in Beijing lives. However, Lu Yuliang was not stupid. If he told Li Ernie, that stupid woman, the bribe would probably not fall into the hands of his family, and all of it would be swallowed up by Li Sankai. Later, Li Ernie called her eldest son over, saying that she had no money and was anxious to get the money for her son to marry a wife. You are doing labor reform here for a few years. Do you think your son will be single with you for a few years? Lu Yuliang softened his heart and drew a map for Li Ernie, showing how to get from the train station. Li Sankai and Li Ernie immediately set off, without stopping, and headed for Xia Shuangshan. However, at the beginning, Lu Yuliang and Li Ernie planned to pretend to be Xia Huanhuan's biological parents, recognize the relatives first, and then take the people to Beijing. Li Sankai felt that it was inappropriate, so they became Xia Huanhuan's second aunt and uncle respectively, so that it would be more convenient to talk about it later. And if something happened, they could also clear themselves. The kids playing in the yard hid behind Xia Huanhuan when they saw a stranger coming. Xia Huanhuan asked Xia Wen and the others to take the triplets into the house, and then she looked up at the person who came. She had heard Xia Shuangshan and Lin Yuru talk about her life experience in advance. Her biological parents were not living a normal life, and it was probably them who sold her, so she couldn't help but frown coldly. How dare they come? To put it bluntly, she is not the original owner. Even if she was still the original owner, she would still beat them away mercilessly if her biological parents who had never raised her for a day came. Li Sankai and Li Ernie had already inquired after entering the village and knew that Lin Yuru was now living with her daughter and son-in-law. Now, seeing Lin Yuru's reaction of fainting and seeing Xia Huanhuan, they had guessed that Xia Huanhuan was the person they were looking for. Li Sankai poked Li Ernie, who was stunned for a moment, then suddenly came towards Xia Huanhuan crying, "You are my poor niece, right? Niece, you have suffered so much over the years. Your biological parents have always asked us to keep an eye out for you, and we have been looking for you for many years and have not given up." Xia Huanhuan interrupted her directly and sneered. "Human traffickers? It's the widow Wang in your village, right?" Li Ernie stared at Xia Huanhuan in astonishment, and then looked at Li Sankai at a loss. How come this is different from what they expected? Also, Xia Shuangshan and Lin Yuru actually said that their daughter was not their biological daughter. They originally planned to curse the human traffickers, and then naturally said that Xia Shuangshan and Lin Yuru bought their daughter from human traffickers, and they knew the news of her biological parents, but didn't tell her. Now, all the plans were disrupted. Li Ernie had never seen the world, and didn't know how to respond for a while. Li Sankai was also a little caught off guard, but he reacted faster than Li Ernie. After a moment of stunnedness, he quickly said, "Wang. Widow Wang? Was she the one who took you away back then? Niece, blame your uncle and your second aunt. We are all so careless and really didn't know about this. Don't worry. When we get back, I will immediately report to the commune and arrest the widow Wang, the human trafficker who stole other people's children. Niece, you don't know that your biological parents, your second aunt's cousin, and his wife are from Beijing. Your family is rich. As soon as we know about you, we will come to find you and pick you up, and we will go to Beijing to meet your biological parents." Li Sankai changed the subject and deliberately revealed the news that Xia Huanhuan's biological parents were very rich. He saw that the small courtyard was now made of bricks and tiles, and there were 6 or 7 rooms including the main house, wing rooms, kitchen, etc. Ordinary farmers simply could not have the money to build such a good house, which showed that this family lived a wealthy life. But no matter how wealthy they were, could they compare to the city parents with Beijing household registration? After Li Sankai finished speaking, He waited proudly to see Xia Huanhuan's face, showing a surprised and excited expression, and she couldn't wait to clamor to follow them to Beijing. Unfortunately, Xia Huanhuan was unusually calm and said lightly, "Oh, what are the names of your cousins? Why don't they come to pick up their daughter in person?" After hearing Xia Huanhuan's question, Li Sankai and Li Ernie couldn't help but flash a moment of panic on their faces. Lu Yuliang secretly followed Sun Chunhua to Jingshi at that time and saw her enter the compound. He knew where the place was. But if they were asked which family Sun Chunhua worked for as a maid and what the master's name was, they couldn't tell. There were guards standing at the gate of the compound, and Lu Yuliang didn't dare to go up to ask. However, Li Sankai reacted quite quickly and immediately evaded the question. Our cousin is Li Dagua and his cousin's surname is Sunday. They both have jobs in Jingshi. People who have jobs in the city have working hours, and it's not easy to ask for leave, so they didn't come in person. Niece, don't argue about this. Go back with your uncle and your second aunt first, and we will accompany you to Jingshi to recognize your relatives immediately. Is that not okay? Xia Huanhuan always felt something was strange when she listened to Li Sansai's words. The two men looked panicked and wanted her to follow them immediately. Could it be that they had colluded with the human traffickers? Once she coveted the biological parents in the city and went with them. Once she arrived in an unfamiliar place, would she be caught by the human traffickers like Li Qiao before? Anyway, it was very suspicious no matter how you looked at it. Of course, even if it was not possible, Xia Huanhuan did not plan to go with them. Biological parents working in Beijing? Even if what they said was true, she didn't care. Lin Yuru suddenly asked at this time, "You say that you are my daughter's biological uncle and aunt, and you know my daughter's biological parents. What evidence do you have?" The last time Aunt Li from the village sent them a message, she said that the widow Wang who came over had a piece of cloth in her hand. If the cloth matches the one in her hand, it can definitely prove that they are definitely related to Wan'er's biological parents. In the past, Xia Shuangshan and Lin Yuru did not want Xia Huanhuan to recognize her biological parents because they thought Li Ernie and Lu Yuliang were them after inquiring, but now they heard from these two people that they were not, and Wan'er's biological parents were actually from Beijing, and they were workers and ate commercial grain. Lin Yuru felt that it would be better for Xia Huanhuan to recognize her relatives. That is a city hukou. As long as she recognizes her relatives, Huanhuan can directly transfer to a city hukou and move to Beijing to live. Her biological parents will definitely find her a job and eat commercial grain. The children in the family will naturally become city dwellers. These are things that she and Xia Shuangshan can't give Huanhuan. They can't be so selfish. They still have to persuade Huanhuan to recognize her relatives. Xia Huanhuan was stunned for a moment and said, "Mom, why are you asking this?" Before Lin Yuru could answer, Li Ernie immediately said, "Yes. We have half of the bag that was used to wrap my niece. I can show you." As she said that, she took out the cloth from the bag. Lin Yuru didn't need to compare it. She saw at a glance that the cloth must be right. The people they said were working in the city were Huanhuan's biological parents. Lin Yuru whispered, "Wan'er, don't be stubborn. They also came all the way here. I see your parents. They're not bad either. They're both registered in Beijing and have jobs. You should recognize them." Xia Huanhuan then understood the meaning of Lin Yuru's action. However, she was not moved, but shook her head firmly and said, "Mom, didn't we agree? My parents are only you and Dad. That's why I don't want to recognize them anymore." Li Sankai and Li Ernie were also a little anxious after hearing this. "Why is your niece so hard to talk to? Can we harm you? Your biological parents are really rich." As they said, they couldn't help but step forward, wishing to take Xia Huanhuan to Beijing to recognize their relatives immediately. But Xia Huanhuan said lightly, "It's not impossible for me to recognize my relatives. They lost their own daughter just like that, and she was sold by human traffickers. Now they finally found her, but they didn't show up themselves, but asked irrelevant people to pick me up."
What?
Having a registered in Beijing and eating commercial grain in the city is so precious. He can't even spare the time to come and pick up his long-lost daughter in person. Li Sankai and Li Ernie were embarrassed. The owner lived in the compound. They wanted to invite him, but how could he pay attention to them? However, Xia Huanhuan refused to give in at all. After saying these words, she drove the two of them away. Li Ernie wanted to ask Xia Huanhuan for some travel expenses for coming all the way here. After all, they came here to find Xia Huanhuan's parents, so it wouldn't be too much to ask for some travel expenses. Seeing that Xia Huanhuan still lived in such a bright house, she could definitely afford it. However, Xia Huanhuan pretended not to hear it. Li Ernie and Li Sankai had to leave embarrassingly. The two of them discussed it. Now that they had seen the girl from that year, although their original plan to take Xia Huanhuan directly to Beijing City was not feasible, it would be troublesome to run back and forth, so they simply bought train tickets to Beijing City together. However, when they arrived at the train station, another idea suddenly popped up in Li Sansai's mind. He looked at Li Ernie and said, "Sister, I think we should go home first." Li Ernie was stunned. "Why? Didn't you say that we should go to Jing City, find her parents, tell them that we helped them find their daughter, and ask for the money as a thank you directly?" Li Sansai's eyes flashed with greed, and he said, "Sister, think about it. If we tell that family about their daughter, even if we ask for a thank you fee, how much can we get? At most, it will be a few dozen or 100, right? That's all one-time money, sister. Don't you want to make more money?" Li Ernie was also tempted after hearing this. Although a few dozen or 100 is not a small amount, who would refuse more money? "Sankai, your sister can't figure it out, so don't keep her in suspense. Just tell me." Li Sankai lowered his voice and said, "Sister, isn't your area about the same age as the girl back then?" Li Ernie thought about it blankly and said, "Yes, they were born in the same year." Li Sankai continued, "Except for the girl we saw back then, no one else has seen her, not even Sun Chunhua. As for just now, fortunately we did not tell the girl the address of that family in Beijing. Sister, I'm thinking, why don't we let Arya replace that girl and go to Beijing to recognize her relatives?" When Li Ernie heard this, her first reaction was to shake her head. How can that be possible? Arya is my daughter, and besides, she doesn't look like her. TSK, what does it matter whether she looks like her or not? We have the bag that was used to wrap the baby girl. This is the evidence. Sister, don't be reluctant to give up your Arya. Think about it. We are helping Arya. She is transformed from a country girl into the daughter of a wealthy family in the city. Won't she be able to eat and drink well in the future? You are her biological mother, and by then, our family will definitely be able to take advantage of a lot. Li Ernie was a greedy person without a backbone. After listening to Li Sansai's words, she agreed. The two of them immediately bought train tickets back to the county, hurried back home, and then took Arya to Beijing again. Xia Huanhuan didn't know that the two had already thought of a plan to replace the pillars with the beams, and was still busy preparing for the new year. Last year, Li Xiaodi, the eldest sister of the Li family, returned to her parents' home, and she was considered to have reconciled with her relatives here. Therefore, after the new year this year, she had to go to visit relatives. However, Li Xiaodi lived in another county, and the journey was not close. Both Xia Huanhuan and Zhou Qiuhe had a lot of things waiting for them to deal with at home, so they didn't plan to go, so they let Li Jie go alone with the gifts. Xia Huanhuan also prepared a bag of loose white sugar, a little flour, and a box of the snacks that were bought for the children, as well as a few sausages which were placed in Li Jie's house, so that Li Jie could take them over when the time came. This year, Li Zhan was certain that he would not be able to come back for the new year. However, this time, Xia Huanhuan knew roughly where he was. After entering the autumn and winter, Li Zhan had ridden back, saying that the climate in the northwest, northeast, and even the south was very abnormal this year. The south was not so bad, but the north had heavy snowfalls one after another, starting in August, and many places had suffered from snow disasters. Some nomadic herders were even trapped in the blizzard and could not move, and needed people to rescue them. In order to protect the lives and property of the herders, Li Zhan and his reinforced regiment were sent to the northwest to help rescue people and trapped sheep. However, that was all Xia Huanhuan knew. It turned out that even knowing where he was, she was still worried. She was worried that he was too enthusiastic in carrying out the mission and got frostbite again, or that they were trapped in the blizzard, unable to escape, and at their wits' end. She didn't know if it was because she thought about it during the day and dreamed about it at night, but on the night of the 23rd day of the 12th lunar month, Xia Huanhuan had a dream. She dreamed of a blizzard all over the sky, and the wind mixed with the blizzard like fine salt, roaring between the sky and the earth. The entire snowfield was deserted, and at a glance, there was nothing but thick snow. However, somewhere in what seemed to be a white place, under a protruding rock, a flock of sheep were huddled together, shivering and making faint bleating sounds from time to time. This dream was so real that Xia Huanhuan even felt as if she was in the middle of it. The biting wind and snow blew in her face, making her shiver. In her dream, she trudged through the knee-deep snow and walked towards the flock of sheep, and then she saw that there seemed to be someone in the flock. Just as Xia Huanhuan was trying to see clearly, she woke up from the dream. She didn't care at first, thinking that she was probably subconsciously worried about Shen Wanxue and Li Zhan, so she dreamed of these scenes. But after having similar dreams for several days in a row, Xia Huanhuan couldn't sit still, because she had seen the faces of the people with the sheep in the dream. She didn't know the man, but she recognized the woman at a glance. If it wasn't Shen Wanxue, who else could it be? When she was about to ask, she woke up from the dream. Xia Huanhuan still remembered that before she traveled through time, after she awakened the portable space, she had also had a similar dream, and then soon, she traveled through time. The dreams she had these days, could they also be similar to precognitive dreams? Could they really happen? If that is the case, then Shen Wanxue and the unknown man, it should be Rong Zhenbang, must have been trapped in the blizzard like other herdsmen. Xia Huanhuan thought of this and couldn't help but worry. Will they be in danger? Is there anyone to rescue them? Although Li Zhan also went to the northwest to help with disaster relief, he might not happen to meet Shen Wanxue and Rong Zhenbang and rescue them in time. That night, Xia Huanhuan dreamed again, and the situation in the dream was more critical. The blizzard in the dream had stopped. Shen Wanxue and Rong Zhenbang were trapped for several days and survived by relying on the dry barley cakes they brought with them. Now that the snow stopped, they immediately struggled to get up and tried to drive the sheep back to the farm. These sheep are collective assets. If they're lost or frozen to death, they will also be criticized. However, just as they were about to go back, there was a sudden sound of horses neighing, and then a group of men with rough looks and untidy beards suddenly rushed over from a distance and surrounded the two people and the flock of sheep. The leader rode a tall horse and spoke in an incomprehensible language with an arrogant look. The waist knife and handgun on his waist, as well as the dagger stuck in the boot, all looked creepy. Rong Zhenbang seemed to understand what these people said and walked over tremblingly to negotiate with them. But the content obviously made the leader unhappy at all. Without saying a word, he suddenly drew out his waist knife and slashed at Rong Zhenbang.
Ah!
Xia Huanhuan was startled and broke out in a cold sweat, and suddenly woke up from her sleep. The dream was like a TV series, with a little new development every night, but tonight's development was obviously too terrifying and cruel. Xia Huanhuan sat on the bed, breathing heavily, and couldn't tell where she was for a moment. It wasn't until she saw the triplets sleeping beside her that she breathed a sigh of relief. However, in the dream, will it really happen in reality? Has it already happened, or has it not happened yet, and there is still a possibility of remedying it? Where is Li Zhan? If the people in the dream were really Shen Wanxue and Rong Zhenbang, Li Zhan's biological parents, they hadn't seen Li Zhan again before. When Li Zhan learned the bad news, he would definitely blame himself and refuse to forgive himself. Thinking of this, Xia Huanhuan couldn't sleep anymore. She only knew that Li Zhan went to the northwest to carry out a mission. Although it was not a confidential mission, there was more that she, as a family member, could not know. How to notify Li Zhan? No, first make sure whether the dream happened. Xia Huanhuan tried hard to recall the scene in the dream, trying to remember whether there were words like reminding the date. She remembered that Shen Wanxue and Rong Zhenbang had talked in the dream, but it was too windy and snowy at the time, so she didn't listen carefully. After trying hard to think for a long time, she still couldn't remember it. Xia Huanhuan had no choice but to force herself to continue sleeping. In the past 2 days, although she had other dreams after falling asleep, she would eventually return to that dream again. This time was no exception. This time, Xia Huanhuan had a clear purpose, which was to listen carefully to the conversation between Shen Wanxue and Rong Zhenbang. It should be the night before those horse thieves appeared. Rong Zhenbang gave the last half of the barley cake to Shen Wanxue. Shen Wanxue wanted to share it with him, but Rong Zhenbang pushed it back. Rong Zhenbang smiled and said, "You can eat. I think the weather is good, and the snowstorm will stop tomorrow. We have been missing for 2 or 3 days. Now everyone on the farm must have organized to look for us. We and the sheep will be fine. I estimate that we will be found tomorrow evening, and then we will have food. It's just," Rong Zhenbang said, and couldn't help laughing at himself for fun. They saw that we didn't get back before New Year's Eve, and we might be criticized. Then the content of the dream was the content of the dream before waking up. Rong Zhenbang was killed by horse thieves, and then Shen Wanxue did not escape. The snow was soaked with blood. The horse thieves drove away with more than a dozen sheep, leaving only Rong Zhenbang and Shen Wanxue. Xia Huanhuan was extremely frightened and heartbroken. But no matter how she shouted in the dream, it did not change the development of the matter. What made her even more heartbroken was that almost an hour later, Li Zhan and other people who came to rescue found Shen Wanxue and Rong Zhenbang. However, everything was too late. Li Zhan's expression of madness, pain, regret, and despair was the last thing she saw before she woke up again. Xia Huanhuan covered her chest and gasped, tears streaming down uncontrollably. No, she couldn't let this happen. She couldn't let Shen Wanxue and Rong Zhenbang suffer such a fate, and she couldn't let Li Zhan show such an expression. New Year's Eve. Not being able to rush back before New Year's Eve means that the timeline in the dream happened after New Year's Eve. Xia Huanhuan was excited. It is now the 25th day of the 12th lunar month, and there are still 5 days until New Year's Eve. In other words, everything in the dream must not have happened yet. What to do? How can I notify Li Zhan before Shen Wanxue and Rong Zhenbang get into trouble so that Li Zhan can go to save his parents? In the northwest, Xia Huanhuan has never had the opportunity to go there since she crossed over, so there is no way to teleport there through space. Then she can only take the train to rush there. According to the content of the dream, Rong Zhenbang and Shen Wanxue must have been trapped by a blizzard near the farm where they were. Li Zhan was able to arrive within an hour after the tragedy, which meant he was nearby. Fortunately, she knew the address of the farm. As long as she could get to the vicinity of the farm before encountering the horse thieves, whether she found Li Zhan or found Shen Wanxue and Rong Zhenbang, either way, she could prevent the tragedy from happening. Xia Huanhuan couldn't sleep, so she quietly got up and put on her clothes quietly for fear of waking up the triplets. But her mind was working rapidly. Tomorrow morning, she would go to the commune to get a letter of introduction, and also send an emergency telegram to the county military liaison office to prepare for both situations. Telegrams would definitely arrive faster than people, but Li Zhan should be doing disaster relief in various places, and he might not be able to see the telegram in time. But he must still send it, in case he encounters something on the road and can't make it. After getting the letter of introduction, she would take the train to Jingshi first, and then transfer to Hohhot in the middle of the northwest. It wouldn't take much time, even if it was a green train. A day and a night would be enough. The key is the journey behind. The farm where Shen Wanxue and the others were located was naturally extremely remote. In the letter that Shen Wanxue sent back last time, it was mentioned that after getting off the train, she first took a car, then a tractor, then a bullock cart, and finally walked dozens of kilometers, taking a total of 3 or 4 days to get there. In that case, time is very tight. The day when the horse thief appears should be the first day of the Lunar New Year. In other words, it happens to be the 6th day counting from today. Finally, when the sky was white outside, Xia Huanhuan washed up a little and went to the commune. Secretary Zhao was used to getting up early. Although the new year was coming soon, today, the 25th, was also the day to kill the New Year pig, so he went to the commune to prepare in advance as always. Seeing Xia Huanhuan coming over so early in the morning, she was startled and asked quickly, Daughter-in-law Li Zhan, did you come over so early in the morning? Did something happen at home? Xia Huanhuan quickly shook his head and said, Secretary Zhao, don't worry. Everything is fine at home.
Just.
Don't laugh at me if you tell me. I had a nightmare last night, dreaming that Li Zhan was injured while performing a mission outside. I feel bad about it. I want to come over and have a look. Can you send me a letter of introduction? Secretary Zhao was stunned for a moment and said, Daughter-in-law Li Zhan, dreams are always the opposite. Don't worry, go to the county first. A telegram. Hey, look, I won't open it for you, don't cry. Look at the fuss this made. Xia Huanhuan raised her hands to wipe her tears and said, Secretary Zhao, neither am I. That kind of hypocritical person. I was really scared of last night's dream, otherwise I wouldn't have run out just before the Chinese New Year. Secretary, don't worry, I just took a look to make sure everything is okay. If so, I'll be relieved. He will definitely not cause trouble to our commune and the county. She is going to find Li Zhan. If she can't find him for a while, she may have to go directly to Shunwanxue, and she will go there all the way. If you are converting from boat to car, a letter of introduction is required at every step. Secretary Zhao was helpless, but he still trusted Xia Huanhuan's character and finally gave her the letter of introduction. When Xia Huanhuan went home, she told Lin Yuru that she was going out and asked Xia Shuangshan to move in during the Chinese New Year and take good care of the children at home. Lin Yuru was also startled. Wanner, you are such a good person. Why did you suddenly say you want to go out? Did something happen to Li Zhan? Xia Huanhuan said with a smile. No. I just missed him suddenly. I didn't spend the Chinese New Year at home last year, and I'm working outside again this year. I'm afraid I won't even be able to eat dumplings. I really want to go and see it. Also, please don't say this to anyone else. Aunt Shun has also been gone for half a year, which is just the time. It's a place I'll stop by to say New Year's greetings or something. Lin Yuru was still worried, but you are not going to the capital this time. You are going to the west, so far away. What if you meet a bad person? It would be better if your father followed me. There is a man on the road. After hearing this, Xia Huanhuan quickly shook her head and said, Mom, don't worry, if my father follows me out, you'll be here at home. How can I feel safe with 6 little cubs? After hearing this, Lin Yuru felt her heart skip a beat when she remembered that Lu Lan had found someone to take away Yan Yi Yao Yao. That time, had Xia Huanhuan not gone directly to Lu Lan with a kitchen knife to settle the score and forced him to find out the location of the gangster, he could have successfully rescued the triplets. Otherwise, she will just cry, which is really useless. What if something really happened while Xia Huanhuan was away and she was alone? Seeing Lin Yuru's expression, Xia Huanhuan said a few more words to comfort Lin Yuru and finally got her to agree to go alone. In fact, she also knew that in this day and age, it would definitely be inconvenient for a woman to go out alone. But it was one thing to let Xia Shuangshan stay at home in case something happened when she was not at home. Also, she might use space to shorten the time as much as possible. If Xia Shuangshan goes together, then we can only transfer trains and buses step by step. There is no point in hurrying. After explaining to Lin Yuru, Xia Huanhuan went to hug the triplets again. The triplets didn't know that their mother was going away, so they said excitedly, Mom, kill the pig today. Kill the pig. Xia Huanhuan felt guilty for a while. She had just promised them a few days ago that she would take them to see the New Year pig when it was slaughtered, but she couldn't do it this year either. You guys are good. Go watch the pig slaughtering with your grandpa and grandma this year. Then he asked Xiaowen, Xiaowu, and Beibei to help their grandpa and grandma with more housework at home, and the winter vacation homework assigned by the teacher should not be wasted. And also, take good care of the 3 younger brothers, Yan Yi Yao Yao. Xiaowen couldn't help but asked, Mom, are you going away? Aren't you going to celebrate the New Year at home? When Xiaowu heard this, he realized and looked at Xia Huanhuan with wide eyes. Aren't you going to celebrate the New Year at home? Where are you going? New Year? What should I do if I can't eat dumplings outside? Beibei is now 5 years old and has become a lot more sensible. She raised her head and asked, Mom, we want to eat dumplings together on New Year's Eve. Xia Huanhuan touched them. He raised his head and chuckled. Isn't your fourth uncle not coming back this year? I'll go find your fourth uncle and celebrate the new year with him. Anyway, you guys should be obedient and listen to your grandpa and grandma. When I come back, if you listen to what your grandma says about you Pai, I'm going to beat you up. After the family's instructions, Xia Huanhuan didn't dare to delay any longer and went out. First, he left the village and walked to a deserted place. Then, he teleported directly to the county seat and went to the military contact point to send a telegram to Li Zhan. Then, he went directly to Beijing City through space. In this way, the time that would have taken most of a day to a whole day to get from home to Beijing was saved. In the past, she rented a house from Dahe in Beijing. Later, after she bought a courtyard house near Hohai, she gave up the rent and then teleported directly to her own courtyard house. Xia Huanhuan asked Dahe to buy the ticket to Hohhot in the northwest. Although she had a letter of introduction from the village, which said she was going to the army to visit relatives, it was not easy to buy a sleeper ticket. Moreover, today is the 25th of the Lunar New Year. Although it is not as good as the Spring Festival travel period later, there are still many people who have to travel thousands of miles to go home for a reunion dinner. Everyone bought their tickets early. For people like her who bought urgent tickets on the same day, although they might be lucky enough to get a refund, there is a high probability that the tickets have been sold out and cannot be purchased. Then you can only wait until tomorrow, or even the day after tomorrow, to get the tickets. Therefore, it is the most time-saving way to directly ask someone with connections for help. Dahe was also a little puzzled. Sister. It's the 25th day of the 12th lunar month. You're celebrating the Chinese New Year. Why are you going to the west where birds don't lay eggs? Xia Huanhuan explained vaguely. My man is over there. He just wants to spend the new year with my man. Oh, don't worry about this. Just help me get the tickets. Money is not an issue. After hearing this, Dahe felt sorry for himself. Luo Cheng, the eldest brother, felt sorry for a while. Brother Luo is so miserable. The woman he likes has to travel thousands of miles to find a husband to spend the new year with his man. Speaking of which, Xia Huanhuan's man should be the same man who found Brother Luo's house last time, right? He looks pretty good. It's just that.
Well,
It's definitely not as good as Brother Luo. A fim. Sister, don't worry. I'll take care of this. The train to Hohhot is only once a day. It leaves at 9 o'clock in the evening and arrives the next morning. I guarantee you can leave at night this year. Xia Huanhuan listened. He smiled gratefully and said, Thank you very much. Dahe took the money and left. Xia Huanhuan pulled out a map of later generations from the space and searched for it. Fortunately, the place name of Shen Wanshue's place had not changed, so she found it. However, there is no way to refer to the railway crossings and provincial roads marked on the map. Nowadays, there are no smartphones, and naturally there are no online maps that can be viewed at any time. Xia Huanhuan thought for a moment and went out immediately to buy a map from that era, otherwise it would be difficult to ask for directions later. I also bought bread, kettles, peanuts, roasted chestnuts with sugar, donkey yellow, and other foods in the food store. I also bought a box of rice flour-flavored snacks and white rabbit toffee, which made people look like I was there. Visiting relatives. About 2 hours later, Dahe came back, and sure enough, he got a sleeper ticket for the day. Xia Huanhuan thanked him endlessly. I immediately packed up and went to the train station. I got on the train smoothly in the evening, and the green train set off carrying a carload of passengers who had traveled thousands of miles to travel to various places before the new year. The train has to travel all night and will not arrive in Hohhot until around 7 or 8 o'clock the next morning. The farm that Shen Wanshue and Rong Zhenbong were working on was a remote and uninhabited farm under a county near Hohhot. When the train arrived in Hohhot, he went to the bus station to buy a ticket to the county seat. Xia Huanhuan was a little confused as to how to go further down, so she could only ask and leave. It's hard to ask about the farm, but you can just ask directly about the military garrison. During the day in the county seat, she also took care to check in with all the garrison points near the county seat under the jurisdiction of Hohhot. The comrades at the county's military liaison station had met her several times and knew that her man was the regiment leader, so he told her readily and helped her send a telegram to visit relatives there as well, which was considered a help. Said hello in advance. Although she was very tired, she really couldn't sleep because her brain was always in a tense state. Besides, if she fell asleep, she would probably have that dream again, which she was somewhat resistant to. After staying up until 2 or 3 in the morning, I still couldn't bear the sleepiness and fell asleep. This time there was more content in the dream. Li Jian lost his mind and took a few people deep into the Gobi to hunt down the horse thieves. Although he finally killed the leader of the horse thieves and several other horse thieves, he also captured the rest. But 2 of the brothers who went there together died as a result. Li Jian's leg also suffered a serious injury from Muzong. The medical conditions there were poor, and the doctor's advice was amputation. Xia Huanhuan woke up again. It was clearly winter, but her back was soaked with cold sweat. Must catch up. She could never let these things happen. The train was delayed for an hour, and we didn't arrive until 9 o'clock. It was already the morning of the 26th. After Xia Huanhuan left the station, she went to the bus station to buy a ticket. In those days, everything was state-owned, and there were no private buses or scalpers who dared to come out to solicit passengers. Xia Huanhuan took the letter of introduction and went to queue up to buy a ticket. The ticket seller looked at her letter of introduction and found that it was issued by a place near Beijing City, and she was going to visit relatives at the military base. He looked at Xia Huanhuan with some vigilance, and then said, "Wait a minute, I have to report to my superiors." Xia Huanhuan had no choice but to wait patiently. After a while, someone who looked like the leader of the bus station came over and asked Xia Huanhuan questions such as her husband's name and which unit he belonged to. Xia Huanhuan answered patiently, and the person on the other side seemed to verify the situation, so another day was delayed. Xia Huanhuan wanted to get angry, but she was afraid that if there were more complications and she was detained here, it would waste more time. So she simply decided that the information she provided was true, and she was not afraid of them verifying it, so she just waited patiently. After finally verifying it, it was all right. The ticket to the county town that day was sold out. Xia Huanhuan was speechless and could only stay in a guest house near the bus station for one night and set off again early the next morning. On the 27th day of the 12th lunar month, she finally got on the bus and arrived at the county town. She first went to the military contact point in that county to say hello and asked how to get to the military garrison here that she had asked in advance. The comrades at the contact point verified and asked for instructions for a long time before they confirmed that Xia Huanhuan was indeed here to visit her relatives, so they asked the garrison to send someone to pick her up. However, your man is seconded here to help with the snow disaster relief. I guess you may not meet him when you go there. When they're out on duty, sometimes we can't contact them for several days or even months. You have to be mentally prepared. Xia Huanhuan nodded quickly and said, "I know. Thank you, comrade. I haven't spent the new year with my man for 2 years. I missed him so much that I came here. If I really can't see him, there is nothing I can do. Sorry to trouble you." The garrison sent a jeep in the afternoon. A man in military uniform got off the car and asked Xia Huanhuan to get in. On the way, Xia Huanhuan asked and found out that Li Jian was not in the garrison. He had been out for half a month. A village under the jurisdiction of Yi City had been trapped by a blizzard for more than 10 days. They had just finished rescuing the last wave and had not rested for a while or had a good sleep, but they rushed to the next disaster area without stopping. "Sister-in-law, I'm sorry. The weather this year is too bad. There are disasters everywhere. Otherwise, we can ask our friendly forces to borrow people to help. Although it is the new year these days, I'm afraid our camp is almost empty. I'm afraid I can't take care of you. If there is anything inconsiderate, please forgive me." Xia Huanhuan was moved and a little guilty by these words. They were already so busy, and they still had to send someone to pick her up. "I'm sorry, I was impulsive and caused you trouble." The visitor smiled and said, "Sister-in-law, don't mind it. If you come to visit relatives at other times, we will at least prepare a roasted whole lamb and then have a bonfire party. It's us who are sorry." Xia Huanhuan smiled and said, "Well, I'll wait for a day. If Li Jian hasn't come back yet, I won't bother you anymore and cause trouble for the country and the army. It just so happens that I have an aunt from a distant place who married here, and I haven't seen her for several years. I'll go visit her if I see that it doesn't work. I'll spend the new year with them this year, so that the relationship between relatives has not been severed." The visitor smiled and said, "That's fine. If you haven't seen each other for a few years, you should meet each other." Xia Huanhuan tentatively asked again, "By the way, comrade, I don't know whether I should ask or not, but I have heard that there may be horse thieves here who specialize in doing bad things to harass the people. Is it true?" The man smiled and said, "Why not? They are all vicious criminals who have committed crimes. This area is vast and sparsely populated, and many people migrate with their families and yurts. Even if there are troops stationed in our garrison, sometimes we can't take care of them. In previous years, these people didn't dare to be too arrogant. They just robbed the herdsmen's cattle, sheep, horses, etc., and they were fine as long as they could survive the winter. This year, the weather has been abnormal since August, and it started to snow heavily in the fall. The herdsmen didn't have time to arrange for winter warmth. Many cattle and sheep were frozen to death or starved to death. Where would there be surplus for those horse thieves to rob? So, they are even more cruel. Since the beginning of winter alone, there have been several cases of robbery and extermination of families. Otherwise, we wouldn't have asked for the regiment of Captain Li to come to help." Xia Huanhuan listened and became more and more worried. Most of the tasks carried out by Li Zhan have always been confidential. But after listening to this man, Li Zhan's tasks were indeed some tasks that required him to deal with vicious and desperate criminals. Thinking of Li Zhan lying in a simple tent with a pale face in the dream, the doctor said with difficulty, "It's no good. It's been delayed for too long. The wound is too infected. It must be amputated, otherwise it will be life-threatening." Xia Huanhuan shuddered involuntarily. The person who picked her up also noticed it and comforted her. "Don't worry too much. Most of them are just routine rescue missions. Those horse thieves have been quiet for a while." Xia Huanhuan smiled palely and said, "Well, I know."
They talked some more gossip along the way.
The jeep drove for several hours before arriving at the camp stationed in a very remote place. Just as the person who picked her up said, there were not so many people in the camp. There were only some logistics and permanent staff, and some injured people were temporarily waiting to be transferred to the big hospital in Hohhot for treatment. Xia Huanhuan was arranged to live in a yurt. The yurt was not big, surrounded by felts to block the wind and keep warm. There were beds made of animal skins and homemade wool blankets. After a while, the soldier who came to pick her up came. After asking, he found out that his surname was Ma. Everyone called him Xiao Ma. He also brought a small stove burning dried cow dung. He also brought a copper pot for making milk tea, brick tea, fresh milk, beef jerky, milk tofu, milk skin, butter, and fried rice to help cook. Xiao Ma smiled and said, "Sister-in-law, it's not time for dinner yet. I'll make you some milk tea first so you can eat." As he said that, he started to prepare. First, pour clean water into the pot, and after it boils, add the crushed brick tea leaves, and then slowly boil it. Then add milk and salt and continue to boil until it boils. Then put beef jerky, milk tofu, and other ingredients into the pot and cook them. It's done. There is not much food here, all of which are beef, mutton, or dairy products. This kind of milk tea can be regarded as the daily diet of local herdsmen. Xia Huanhuan felt more and more embarrassed. The snowstorm this winter was so serious, and Li Zhan and his men came to support. She, a family member, came all the way here and had to trouble others to take care of herself, and also consumed the ration supplies here. On the surface, it was really confusing. But thinking of the things in the dream, Xia Huanhuan also knew that she had to come this time. Even if it was just an ordinary nightmare, not a prophetic dream, she had to come here to seek peace of mind. "Comrade Xiao Ma, it's really too much trouble for you. I brought dry food here, and you don't have to be busy taking care of me." Xiao Ma smiled and said, "No trouble.
This is what we should do."
"Then, sister-in-law, you take a rest first, and I will call you when the meal is ready." Xia Huanhuan agreed, and when Xiao Ma left the yurt, she took a sip of the milk tea. It was salty and fragrant, and it also had a strong milky aroma. It was really delicious, and she finished it in a short while. The milk tea contained beef jerky, milk tofu, fried rice, etc., so the quantity was sufficient and quite filling. She had been taking food from the space such as chocolate, biscuits, meat buns, etc., and eating them behind people's backs, so she didn't feel hungry. But when she arrived in Ho-Hote, she had to go to the county town again, and someone came to pick her up. She didn't have much chance to eat along the way, so she was still quite hungry. After eating, Xia Huanhuan still forced herself to sleep for a while. Today is the 27th day of the 12th lunar month, and there are only 3 days left before the New Year's Eve. The most ideal thing is that Li Zhan can come back tomorrow, so that she can tell Li Zhan that Shen Wanque is trapped and the approximate location. Li Zhan has someone under his command who can rescue her immediately. As for how Li Zhan asked her how she knew, she could only tell the truth that she had a nightmare. For this kind of thing, it is better to believe it than not to believe it. However, if Li Zhan doesn't come back tomorrow, she can't just wait.
Or
Tell the people stationed here that there may be people trapped in that area. However, how could she, a family member from another place, describe so accurately what happened near the farm where Shen Wanque was, including the location? It was possible that not only did they not rescue her in the first place, but they would think that there was something wrong with her, that she was an interloper or a spy sabotaging, and detain her. If they simply detained her and sent people to rescue her, as she said, then it would be fine. After the people were rescued, at least her innocence could be proved. But I was afraid that after detaining her, they would not rescue her due to lack of manpower,